Happy Festivus, everyone. Today is the official day for Festivus, where we will be airing our grievances, showing off feats of strength, and talking about all of our nerdiness here tonight. We got a great show for you. We're going to talk a little bit about Daredevil. We're going to talk a little bit about a lot of things. Henry Cavill again. Some new interesting details on possible Henry Cavill and Marvel. Finally got our confirmation of Spider-Man 4, and we finally figure out when we're going to see an official trailer for DC's The Flash. Let's hit that intro. It is Friday night in Phoenix, and you're listening to the Absolute Geek Podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm JP. How you doing?
Good, and we'll be joined by Ish momentarily. Hopefully, his internet is, less appalling than it was last week.
Momentarily could be like hours.
Yeah. Hope you guys in the Midwest are staying safe with this Stormageddon they're talking about that's rolled through. I know some places didn't get a lot of snow, some places did, but it's, from what I've been hearing, it's been very, 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 very cold. So it's a good way to kick off the Christmas season. Like, you said it was a blizzard where you're at, huh?
Yep, still going on. We started the day this morning about 40 degrees, and it's down to 0 right now. And with wind chill, I'm sure it's less than that, but it is not. I mean, we're not getting feet and snow like Buffalo did a couple weeks ago, but it has been blowing like crazy out there, like a blizzard, and we got a couple inches of snow. So good day to do a podcast.
Where a lot of friends of mine that live in Michigan, it's like 14 degrees, or I saw a lot of people showing negative like 10, and it looked very, very. I'm glad I live in Phoenix for once. It's this time of year. I'm glad I live in Phoenix versus the Midwest, so I don't have to deal with snow anymore. But
yeah, we got not a ton of snow. I've seen more, but definitely the wind chill, the cold has been usually not this early in the year. We usually have white Christmases, but not freezing cold Christmases in the great Northwest of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Well, I hope everyone is finished your Christmas shopping, getting ready for Christmas Eve tomorrow night, getting ready for your holiday season and set for a new year. If you guys haven't done it already, I need to make a shout out to JP and make sure you guys go check out that first episode of the Absolute Game of Nerds podcast, where you get to hear a little bit about JP and Rohan and what got him back into collecting. And make sure to check out Monday. That's right, Monday we will have a new episode of the Absolute Game of Nerds where they start their hunt for 181. So it's good stuff. Definitely worth checking out. I enjoyed the first episode. I got to see this one too already, and I really enjoyed this one too. So wealth of knowledge between the two of you on as far as your style of collecting. It's very unique.
Yes, yeah, we had fun doing it, so I appreciate it, and it's been fun. That's what it's all about, having fun.
Yeah, are you all ready for the holidays? All finished shopping, got everything done, and
all the shopping's done. The gifts were wrapped today. My kids were home today, and so therefore they did nothing as my wife and I wrapped their gifts, and which now that mine are old enough to know that the real deal of Christmas, we could do the no spoilers there. We could do the wrapping of those gifts. So it was nice.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Drum roll, please, as we bring him in to see if his internet is actually going to work today.
Nice.
What's the over-under on Ish's internet?
50.
There he is.
Oh my gosh, it's Ish.
You're looking crisp.
Just kidding. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Nice.
You're looking real crisp this week.
Nice. Thank you.
I thought that shit froze.
I asked for better internet for Christmas, so maybe I got an early Christmas gift.
Maybe.
Looks like you did.
Is that your airing of the grievances today on this Festivus? Is that your internet sucks? Oh, that delay.
Yes.
Oh, that delay ish.
You're already breaking up a little. It's starting.
Oh, ish. You need to turn off whatever it is you're streaming or downloading, or tell your mom to quit playing games, whatever it is. Get off that McDonald's dial-up internet ish. Oh, you're going pixelated. Oh no, we're losing them already. Oh, it's starting. Look at him. He looks like he's in chat roulette as it is.
He already froze.
Oh,
I thought I was in the wasteland of internet.
Ish. What's going on in the shops this week, Ish? Christmas. What are people buying? Or are there any hot books flying off the shelves that people need to be made aware of before we get into news?
Whew. It was a really good week for us, just in general, Christmas shopping. I sold. We were laughing. We were selling the unsellables today. Just weird stuff that's just been like gathering dust, or we're just like, who's ever going to buy this? And like sold a lot of weird stuff like that.
Did you sell a bunch of these this week?
Yeah, that was popular.
I had to buy this thing for $20 because my local shop didn't have it. And I bet you guys probably bought it for $5 and could have sold it for $20 or $25, right?
Oh, look at them.
Actually, I think I sold those at cover price.
Really? Son of a bitch.
So what was the hot book this week, Ish?
Probably the dark web stuff. They had 3 dark web titles: Gold Goblin, Miss Marvel, and Mary Jane and Black Cat. Those did tremendously well.
With that very
I don't know,
average
just a lot of like
J.
random
Scott
stuff,
Campbell
like
cover.
Frazetta Death Dealer.
Oh, look at that.
Very average J. Scott Campbell cover.
That's the A cover, yeah. Very average. I'll tell you what did not sell. So we sold a shit ton of new comics. So the rack was looking super bare. A lot of titles just down to 1 or 2 issues. And then I have this giant stack of Spider-Man: The Lost Hunt. And I don't get it.
The Lost what?
The Lost Hunt.
Lost Hunt?
Oh.
So they're redoing
the
Lost Hunt. Yes,
I bought one
by J.M. DeMatteis. You know,
it looks like the web.
I don't know why page. People. It was like
it is. It's an homage of it.
I can't touch that one.
I bought it because I'm a shill for everything Spider-Man. So it was a very light week for me as far as pickup goes. Like, how did that DC book?
Oh, there was a new Gru for Gru fans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys read Gru. I'm a huge Gru fan.
Used to be a Gru fan.
There was, Gru fans they get excited and they let you know I'm a Gru fan. So we had a lot of that. Matt, what were you saying about DC?
I was saying, how did you guys sell a lot of that the end of Final Crisis book or whatever it is? The I can't think of the name.
I had to immediately Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, number 7.
Yeah, Dawn of the DCU.
I had to I was immediately ordering more. That was gone before like 5 minutes into opening. That one went crazy.
That was spec heavy on this week. Very, very heavy on.
Yeah.
It kind of flew under the radar.
Well, it is kind of it's setting up the whole reboot of the DC universe. We got a new Action Comics next week, which is like the whole brand new Action Comics format, 3 Superman stories in each issue. So they're changing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that one flew really heavy under the radar. Like it was really flew under the radar until about Tuesday afternoon once the book came out, and it's very spec'd on because I guess it's got a first cameo team appearance of the Council of Light plus Peace Walkers and then 2 new unidentified characters. So it's got a lot of stuff going on with it. And it's interesting how they seem to be pushing Nightwing to the forefront of the DC universe.
You think that means something coming forward?
It could be. I mean, I know James Gunn came out today saying, or this week, I don't want to say it's today, but came out this week saying that he's working with Jim Lee to kind of restructure and follow the Marvel format and kind of make it to where the DC movies are tied in with the comics. So they're kind of on the same playing field, kind of like what Marvel did a few years back with the start of the MCU. So
you could see stuff like 10 years ago that comes out now in the movies, right? So that's there was like a little delay, but that would be good. That'd be good.
Well, you got the Marvel format is whenever someone's going to show up in a movie, they start bringing out books with them. They start bringing them to the forefront and getting you reacclimated with them again. So like if you look, for some reason, Hulk's kid came out and then he shows up in the show. Same thing with Black Panther's kid. And then he shows up at the end of Black Panther. And it's just like they start reintroducing these characters. Like Mephisto, you now know that Sacha Baron Cohen is going to play Mephisto. So they started bringing Mephisto back into stuff this summer. So they start setting the stage for where they're going to move to in the comics before they ever actually bring that character to the MCU, just to kind of, down that 2-liter ish. No glasses for this man.
Jesus.
This man does not need a glass. He is
sugar free. What the hell? Holy shit!
That Diet Coke. You having some hot dogs to wash that down with? Are you?
No, but I'm waiting for your mom to come home. She's bringing something special. Something I'll be housing.
Still makes me laugh to this day when you guys say your mom, because when I first started listening to you guys, I thought for sure it was Matt's mom that you were talking about in that regard.
Hey, don't break the illusion. We gotta let it out there. Float around, let people think what they'll think.
Makes it funny as hell.
Well, to kick off this Festivus, before we get into the news, I want to know, we had a plethora of Marvel and DC stuff this year, so I figured we could go around and air our grievances about the movies that, not like we haven't already done that, but kind of what was your most disappointing movie? So looking back at the beginning of the year, what was your most anticipated movie, and then what movie disappointed you the most?
Who do you want to go first?
I'll start with JP.
JP, my most anticipated movie was Thor. Thor. What was it called?
Love and Thunder.
Love and Thunder, and that was my most disappointing movie because I had looked forward to seeing the Hercules aspect introduced into the MCU with that movie, potentially maybe Doom or there was a couple other people that could have been introduced in that movie, and that movie was just terrible. And it disappointed me to no end. I look forward to seeing it. It was the first big movie, in my opinion, of the Phase 4. That was before the Multiverse of Madness came out, I believe. And I thought, oh, this is going to be that cosmic movie that's going to bring everybody into it. And it just didn't deliver. It was bad.
Ish.
Yeah, exact same thing. I was very looking forward to Thor: Love and Thunder, and it was an absolute piece of shit. It wasn't even just like, oh, it's a Marvel movie I don't care for. Like I found that movie insulting, personally insulting. That's how bad that was.
See, for me,
runner up would be She-Hulk.
Yes. Yeah, She-Hulk. I mean, it was a lot, honestly. Like Moon Knight for me.
Other runner-ups, Obi-Wan and Boba Fett.
Was Boba Fett this year or was that last year? It was this year, wasn't it? I can't keep it straight anymore.
Maybe it still lingers.
No, I think it's the end of last year. It was like holiday season last year. For me, the movie that I was most psyched about was the Batman, and that just didn't disappoint. But Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Like I kind of expected Thor: Love and Thunder to be goofier, because of what Taika Waititi did with Ragnarok. My only issue with that movie is just the portrayal of Gore the God Butcher. For me, it was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, because I feel like they touted this movie as being terrifying, as being the first horror movie in the MCU, being and I didn't feel like it was. I felt like there was one jump scare just because he gets zombified and Wanda is a witch, and it doesn't make it a horror movie. And I feel like we got a promise of the multiverse that never paid off. You just see him fall through a bunch of them, and you really only got two universes. So how is that considered a multiverse? Like, I think I would have liked that a little bit more expanded upon, but otherwise, for me, yeah, Moon Knight was disappointing. She-Hulk was disappointing. I had high hopes for She-Hulk. Obi-Wan, I didn't much. I mean, I had my issues with Obi-Wan as far as continuity goes, but otherwise, it wasn't a bad show. But I think that's really my most egregious movie this year was probably Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, because that was the one I had the most hope for.
Now, which one came out? Multiverse of Madness, did that come out before Thor?
I think Multiverse of Madness came out before Thor. Yes.
Okay.
I think Multiverse of Madness came out, and I want to say it came out in May.
May and maybe
Yeah.
May
I will
and
say
July.
that Batman. The Batman is one movie that exceeded my expectations. I went in there. I'm always excited for a Batman movie, but now looking back, I'm like, wow, that was a really, really good movie.
Yeah,
So
May
that was the
6th
opposite
for Doctor
of Thor.
Strange.
I did. Excuse me. Pardon me. I didn't think the Batman movie was good, but I didn't think it was like as good as the Christian Bale movies.
Really? I thought it was better.
I think the first 40 minutes of that movie is so phenomenal. The first 40 minutes are incredible.
Of the Batman.
Of the Batman, yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
god, I always get so sucked in by that first act. It's like, woo.
I don't think it was a bad movie by any stretch of imagination. It was probably the brightest spot of 2022, but I just didn't think it was. Again, I get mad, and we can get into this later on, but this whole connective universe thing that isn't happening with DC, this movie had no bearing on anything else, right? I loved how they'd made the Riddler. I loved his craziness, because there's nothing better than the craziness of the Joker from 2008. I think that movie epitomized, just being out there like that. That movie just, I don't know, spoke to me. I think he did a great job with it. Riddler, he did a great job. The guy who played, I don't know his name, but he did a great job playing it this this year. Yeah, I mean, that was just a lot of substance to it. Like, that's what I like about these movies is you don't get that from the Marvel movies. You get that from the heroes, but in DC, you get it from the villains. And it's something about being that crazy or that out there that DC can show, and that's what I think they're missing in their universe. And maybe James is going to bring that to them, but either way, I think that was brought about. But again, the continuity is what throws me off on these things. Why do we keep making another Batman movie? Why not just bring Christian Bale back? Why not bring whoever back from years ago and just keep the continuity of these movies? Continuity. But I think it was good overall. I mean, I don't mind Robert Pattinson. He did a good job overall, but the movie itself was great. But again, it's like a separate universe again. And where are we going with this thing?
What was your most surprising non-comic book or superhero movie this year? For me, it had to be Top Gun Maverick.
I didn't see that movie.
Oh, it's on Paramount Plus now. You can go check it out.
I know. I was going to rent that the other day for $20 or whatever it was, and I still have not yet to see it.
What about you, Ish?
Probably the best movie I saw this year. It's called Tar, T-A-R, starring Cate Blanchett. And we went and saw it at Fashion Square. And man, that was like a really excellent, top-notch film. That, not superhero or anything really, just an actual, just serious adult drama. I think it's going to probably get like a bunch of Oscar nominations or something. Yeah, it was like total limited release. It's only playing in theaters. But, that's if I had to pick one movie that really stood out, that was it. We walked out of the theater just going, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, never even heard of it. That's interesting.
It's about she's a conductor for the Berlin Symphonic Orchestra. You know, that sounds exciting, but it is. They just crafted
God, that already sounds
story.
boring. I already want to just go to sleep after hearing that.
All of a character.
Look, it's so boring. Your internet's like, I don't even want to listen to this. So boring. Yeah. I think though, with your background in movies, you look at movies through a different lens than.
Just keep talking. I don't know
do.
if I'm cutting in and out. Doctor Strange 2, and I get all the, but I still had a ton of fun watching that movie.
I thought it was good because it was Sam Raimi.
Doctor Strange, that is.
Yeah, it was Sam Raimi movie. It was good, I thought.
Yeah, we don't condone pirating here, Zaggy.
Yes.
Zaggy said, ew, don't spend $20 on Top Gun, just torrent it. Who torrents anymore? What is this, 2010?
Go ahead and send me the link. You can send me the link.
Just watch on Paramount Plus.
Listen, I have Netflix, I have Hulu, I have Disney, I have ESPN, I have DirecTV. I can't buy another streaming service. I can't keep up with that shit.
Disappointing. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of geek news.
Christ, am I watching a 40 go on there at Ish's house or what the hell?
Yeah, Ish is partying hard on this Festivus.
Jesus. Look at
Just
that.
Diet Coke down the hatch, huh?
For Dr. Dre.
Geek news. Kicking off our show tonight, our top story is Back to the Future responds to rumors of a Netflix animated series. Back to the Future has denied reports that a new animated series is in the works for Netflix. The official Twitter account for the beloved science fiction franchise has refuted a recent report from Giant Freaking Robot that claimed a Back to the Future animated series was in early developments for Netflix, simply tweeting a gif of Christopher Lloyd saying, "It ain't happening." A previous Back to the Future animated series aired on CBS between 1991 and 92, lasting 2 seasons and 26 episodes. Do we want to revisit the Back to the Future franchise, or is this really a franchise that is so perfectly imperfect that it should just be left alone and never remade in any aspect or form?
That's a good question.
Because I know there was talks of them trying to remake it with the kid who plays Peter Parker. I can't think of his name right now. Tom Holland in the Marty McFly role, but the creators of the movie said, "Over my dead body, we will never do we will not do a remake of this movie as long as I'm alive," because a lot of people, I guess, consider it the perfect movie.
Is it okay? Is there a perfect movie? No, but when they redid Total Recall with name the guy who played the Penguin in the most recent Batman movie.
Oh, Colin Farrell.
Okay, was that Total Recall a good movie?
No.
Is Colin Farrell a good actor? Hell
Yes.
Yeah. But was that movie good? No, because it was perfect the way it was. So should we do a Back to the Future? Probably not. I mean, Marty McFly, Christopher Lloyd, and Michael J. Fox, they are the epitome of what that movie stood for. I mean, are they great actors? Yes, in their own right, but they made that movie. I don't think you need to remake it. Unfortunately, you don't need to remake that movie. But for those of us that want to relive that past, you know, to take a different spin on it, it would be cool to remake it. But if the people who started the whole thing said not to do it, then I gotta agree with them. But I think we would appreciate it, hopefully, but they wouldn't screw it up like they have done with other movies they've remade.
I think Back to the Future is that one franchise where I prefer the second over the first. Like, I like the second Back to the Future over the first, and
why?
I don't even acknowledge 3.
Why do you like the second over the first?
I just like the future stuff in it. I think, like, you know, you go and you see the Cubs winning the World Series and just all the futuristic stuff and the hoverboard and stuff like that. And then it's essentially halfway through the movie, it becomes the first movie again. So it's just like, it's the best of both. It gives you a little bit of extra actually seeing, because like, to me, it was always weird that it's called Back to the Future, but they only go to the past in the first one.
Right.
So now
That was the future then.
yeah, the second one makes more sense to me as far as like calling it Back to the Future, because they go to the future and then the past and stuff. But I don't know. There's just something about the second one, the allure of the second one, that I prefer over the first movie.
It's the fact that you can go to the future is the allure of that second one. I like the first one a lot, but the fact that I could have gone back forward to the future, or whatever you want to call it, was huge. I mean, Jesus, if any of us could have been able to perform that task back in the day, going to the future would have been cool as hell.
Stick says it's all one movie if you watch it correctly.
Think about it though. It was 2015. We still don't have flying cars. The Cubs did win the World Series, but most of the stuff they came up with has yet to be
What's correct?
part of our world yet.
Hoverboards are not the hoverboards we have are not the hoverboards we want. The hoverboards we want do not have two wheels on them.
Nope.
You know, so.
But I mean, it was. I think the all three of them were good movies. I did enjoy the third one, going back to the way past, coming back to the future again, and all that stuff. Like I did enjoy that movie. I don't think you can, if you remake them, I think that you run the risk of ruining just like Total Recall, you ruin that franchise, and you have to come up with a different idea this day and age and it's hard to do. Again, it's all been it's already been thought about, made somehow in some sort of fashion. But when you redo something, I think you could take away from the original, and that's what makes me mad.
Yeah, and I get it, Sticks, that they have to get back to the future. The second one is back to the past, but I understand that the whole premise of the movie is them getting back to the future when they're stuck in the past. But it just, I don't know, just something about the futuristic aspect of the second one I like a lot more than the first, even though it halfway through it becomes the same movie. So, oh, they both left at the same time. Look at that. But I don't. No, you're good. I don't think we need an animated series. Like, I think if you run the risk of really tarnishing the franchise if you come out with something now. And even in that aspect, like even in animation form, you run the risk of really tarnishing that franchise. So I think when it comes to Back to the Future, you just leave it be and leave it alone.
Has any remake ever done well for the franchise?
Yes, they had an animated series, Cardi, in 91 and 92 with 26 episodes. But
has any remake of anything, Total Recall, the Star Wars franchise, even bringing back the prequels, whatever, has any of those ever, I mean, besides just the sheer fact of making money, have any of them added to the storyline of what the fans have enjoyed?
I would say the Judge Dredd, the Carl Urban Judge Dredd was good. But otherwise, I'm scared. You know, the RoboCop didn't do well. Point Break, the original, is better than the new one. I don't think Ghostbusters Afterlife hurt the franchise. I think it did enough to move the franchise forward in a new direction.
The women's movie screwed it up.
That one did, yes, but I don't pay attention. Like, I'm just like, all right, well, that's kind of like the same vein I take the Batman in, is like, it's a different universe. It really doesn't even really the only reference to the first one is, you know, a couple cameos, but other than that, like, it's not, you don't really have the core group in there as Winston, Egon, Venkman, and Spangler like you do in the new one. So,
right.
And I think the new one handled Harold Ramis's death very well.
Oh, I thought it's really good how they did that. Yep.
But next up, Netflix password sharing crackdown is going to start in 2023. Netflix is bringing down the hammer on password sharing. Per the Wall Street Journal, the streamer will be clamping down on sharing of passwords to their accounts in 2023. After months of prolonged testing and the revamped system, Netflix plans on rolling out the restrictions to more territories in the coming months. This revised rule will see subscribers wanting to share their password paying an additional fee on top of their original plan. The prototype for the system, which has been rolled out in Latin America, requires audiences who aren't in the primary user's house to log in with a validation code that expires 15 minutes after being sent. At the time of writing this, and unknown whether any changes to the system will be made when it eventually hits other regions. I think you're going to see Netflix's viewership drop dramatically because there's a lot of people that aren't going to want to subscribe to Netflix, or they're only going to subscribe to it when big shows like the final season of Stranger Things or things like that come out.
Well, I have DirecTV, and I shut it down after football season and bring it back up during football season. So Netflix wouldn't be the same thing for me where I shut it down before Stranger Things come out, because there's really nothing to watch right now, in my opinion, on Netflix. I have HBO Max, I have Hulu, whatever else. I'm thinking, man, I got to get rid of one of these subscription services, and this might be the one I do.
I hear a Jamaican saying this. They blocked my Netflix, man. Well, now you don't even need DirecTV for football because they've lost the Sunday ticket rights, and I went to YouTube TV, and they're gonna do it supposedly a la carte, but it's still gonna be like $300-400 for the year, for the season.
Yeah, but can you pick your own team? That's the thing that bothered me. The last week's game for the Steelers, which I'm a big Steeler fan, they said when I checked DirecTV on the app, it said that they were going to be playing, because I live in an area where we got Cleveland, Buffalo, and Steelers, and they're going to play the Buffalo game. And I said, oh shit, can you guys just give me DirecTV Sunday ticket, because I've been with you guys for 15 years, whatever. And they wouldn't do it. And they said, no, we're not going to add it to you. If you want it, you can add it for $75 for 2 payments. So $150 to watch there's 3 games left.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not paying that. And then I checked my TV, and they actually played the Steeler game instead of the Buffalo game, which I was happy about. But I'm like, if I could just pick $10 a game, right? If that's what YouTube TV is going to do, $10 a game, I would gladly do that, right? There's 18 games a year, $10 a game, $180. I'll pay for this game or that game, but I'm not going to pay you guys $200-300 before the season starts. And that's what, if they do a la carte, like you just mentioned, that'd be great. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I know, they're not going to do a la carte like that, because I wish they would too. They're going to do, like, when I say a la carte, that I mean they're not going to force you to buy a subscription to YouTube TV.
But you can buy for that particular game that week, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how they're going to do it, because it's still going to be local. So as far as I'm aware, they're still going to have the blackout rule, because that's an NFL thing. So if the game is on TV in your local market, it's still going to be blacked out on Sunday ticket. Now, I don't know how they'll get around that with like VPNs and stuff. I don't know if you have like a VPN and say, oh, well, I live in Pittsburgh, or I live in, Buffalo, but I'm going to put my VPN to Pittsburgh and see if it changes there if it's not local. I don't know how that'll all work out as far as that goes, but I too wish they would just offer you, like, luckily I've been with DirecTV and I've gotten somehow managed to get Sunday ticket for free the last 3 years. Nice. But like, I would love to just be able to buy tickets or buy, just my team. I just want to be able to watch the Packers games.
Oh my God. All these years, I did not know you were a Packers fan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Die hard.
Die
hard Packers fan.
I should introduce you to my brother-in-law. He's a Packers fan from this area.
What's up, Larry? Yeah, die hard Packers fan. So I wish I could buy the Packers games, just their games, but sadly that's not the case. Hopefully soon, though. You would think they would move to that business model because it would make sense.
Yeah, but how many games you get on Fox? Right now, DirecTV has an issue with Fox. They're not playing any Fox channels, right? With DirecTV, right? You have
No, I get Fox. I got my local channels, my local Fox channel.
well, for some reason, DirecTV has some issue with locally Fox won't be played, and that's where just about most of your Green Bay games would be played, right? Any NFC team would be played. So if I could just pick my team every week and either pay or not pay, right? I don't want to have to pay. And like I said, I called DirecTV last week. They wanted $150 to watch the next 2 weeks. That's way too much. But if I could pay 10 or 20 bucks per game, or for some subscription to your team, that I would. I mean, I don't know what YouTube's going to do, but if it's something to that effect where you can pick your team, maybe that would be better off. I mean, I wouldn't watch Green Bay, but any stretch, if you would pay me.
Yeah, it's all right. You're still bitter about 2010, I'm sure. It's all
I
good.
am. That was one of my worst days ever after that game. I have to tell you.
It was a good day for me because my ex-wife is from Weirton, West Virginia, so her whole family are Steelers fans. So it was a good day for me.
Yeah, I hated that day because of my brother-in-law. So,
but I mean, this will take Netflix for me because I steal from my parents' Netflix. I don't pay for Netflix. I already, like you said, I already paid for HBO Max. I pay for Hulu. I pay for Disney Plus. I pay for, Peacock and Paramount, and it's just like I don't really. I only watch like Stranger Things, and like rarely ever do I go to Netflix unless it's like there's nothing on TV, because I still pay for DirecTV too. I mean, you rarely ever go to Netflix and just like there's nothing on TV. I'm gonna go see what's on streaming, see if they have anything good, and it's just like,
yeah, you're paying for like basically both right there. At 14, you're almost like another 150, 50, 60 bucks right there for the extra stuff. So,
and I usually end up going to HBO and watching a movie I've seen a million times. Like,
yeah, and if you've been with HBO or DirecTV for a while, I usually I call and I'll say, hey, listen, I've been with you guys since 2006. What can you offer me? And I'll say, well, we'll give you HBO Max for free for 6 months.
Yeah,
and then you go to the movies right there, right? So you don't need Netflix and all that stuff.
Now you go kind of wonder with the NFL deal and them losing Sunday Ticket. Think of how much, like, what are they going to do to retain subscribers now? Because how many people have DirecTV just for Sunday Ticket? Like, think of all the bars that have DirecTV just for Sunday Ticket. Or, I'm sure they'll keep them still because of all the sporting events, like the center ice and all that. But
yeah, but like the last couple since this season began, I went out on Thursday night to go Applebee's to grab a beer. We went out for dinner, like the wife and I, and they were like, we're not playing the game. I'm like, what do you? Oh, that's right, it's on
Amazon Prime. Yep.
I'm like, well, you guys can't get freaking Prime. I guess it's not a business account or something, so they can't get Prime. So I'm like, oh great, girls softball's on, or basketball or some shit that you don't want to watch. So
yeah, I wonder what the logistics on that is, as far as like them having to stream that to different TVs. Like that's a lot of bandwidth usage.
Yeah.
Like at some point the internet companies are going to have to catch up and be like just amazing bandwidth to meet the demand of.
What's Ish going to do?
Right? Well, Ish is still on dial-up, so
I know he won't watch shit.
Yeah, he's still on that dial-up internet. So
we need 5G around this motherfucker, right?
Fucking poor Ish.
We'll see.
The other thing with Prime games, the Prime games too, they're on NFL Network like an hour after the game ends. So once it's over on Prime, then you can watch it on. They show it again on NFL Network.
Well, that's the thing. I guess I don't.
Ish, why don't you get out of the chat and get back on here, because your connection wasn't that bad.
I got rid of my. I think it was NFL, whatever package I had. I got rid of it because I wasn't watching it because it was summertime, and I didn't up it recently. So therefore, I guess NFL Network's not part of the ESPN package now on DirecTV. So I tried to watch one of the games recently, and I couldn't watch it because it wasn't part of it. I'm like, you guys got to just put it all in one package. All the sports should be one. Fox Sports, Fox, ESPN, all the same. Quit. I mean,
Ish watches his movie in GIF format. But yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. It's gonna be interesting. Interesting time.
Well, it's bad time to be a Packers fan.
No, bad time to be a Steelers fan.
We're both trying to get in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I tell you what, that 2010 was a year that like Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have been worth shit had he not won that game. And he got all these advertisements because of that game, and I still get pissed because of that. But it was a great game for them. It was a terrible time for me, but it was a tight game. It wasn't any blowout, but they played well. But he hasn't been back since then, right?
That's really gotta put a itch in your craw. That
my God, I live
the
and die by
Duval
the Steelers.
County Jacksonville Jaguars might make the playoffs, and the Steelers might not.
And that's okay. I'm okay with the rebuilding season, but you guys still have Aaron Rodgers, and where the hell has he been at? Not back in the Super Bowl.
I mean,
you guys haven't. I mean, Big Ben won. He went to 3 of them. You guys went to 1, right? I mean,
well, we've been in the NFC Championship. Like, when was the last time the Steelers were even in an NFC Championship game?
When they played Steelers in like 2016, right? So that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
So but we won 3 we were in 3 Super Bowls like in 5 years. You guys were in 1 in 10 years.
It's all right.
We're still better. We're still better.
We won the first one, so that's all.
Right,
that
but we still have 6. You guys have 4?
Yeah.
So we're all right with that.
If you want to go back to how many
we don't
championships
count
we
that.
have
We don't
before
count
the
that.
NFL
we don't count that. We
had
don't
the
count
Super
that.
Bowl when it
We
was
don't
just
count that.
NFL championships, but
We don't
it's
count
all right.
that.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's like Cleveland had 8 championships, and no one counts that shit on them, right?
Well, because the Cleveland Browns team that we have now are not the real Cleveland Browns team. So
True.
they sold their team and then brought it back because they were like, "Oh, we should have a football team again."
We should try something. There's nothing to do in Cleveland except that.
Daredevil Born Again could be Charlie Cox's last shot at the Marvel hero. Charlie Cox is returning to play the Man Without Fear, Marvel Studios' upcoming Disney Plus series Daredevil Born Again, but the actor thinks if this show doesn't work, it could be his last shot at playing the popular hero. During an interview with NME, Cox circled back to a statement he made by her interviewer that he could be busy for years playing Matt Murdock / Daredevil with a sense of caution. The actor responded by saying, "You said earlier that I could be busy for years, and I thought, yeah, maybe, but hopefully. But if this show next year doesn't hit the spot, then that might be it." Cox ended his statement by saying, "Then it's back to," before trailing off without finishing his thought. So it sounds like there's a lot riding into Daredevil Born Again. There's a lot on the line, it sounds like, for the future of Daredevil in that show versus, like, we already know that the She-Hulk's not going to really have an effect on that character, that they already have plans to bring her into the Avengers and bring her into the movies and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how Daredevil actually has an effect on the future of this character. But
yeah, I don't
go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, like they got 18 episodes, right? In Born Again.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good longevity for his character, and that's going to stretch and add to what's happening in the MCU in the next couple of years, right? Phase 4, Phase 5 and 6. So I think he'll have a big part in going forward because of those 18 episodes. They're gonna, if it bombs, they might get rid of it, but I think that it'll just add to that character.
Yeah, I almost wonder if we're gonna get these like X amount of episodes and they're gonna take a break, and then you're gonna get another X amount of episodes and they're gonna take a break, and then you get another X amount of episodes. I kind of almost wonder if they're gonna use Daredevil as like that in between connector for movies, especially like the street hero stuff. So I wonder if we'll see more She-Hulk, if we'll see more Moon Knight in that show, if we'll see a little bit of Spider-Man stuff. Maybe not Tom Holland in the suit, but somebody, portraying Spider-Man in the suit, and just kind of using this show as that like in between driver. And that's why it's getting 18 episodes versus the normal 6 to 10 episodes that we see from Disney Plus shows, usually around 6. But I think it's going to be fine if it keeps the same tone that the Netflix series had. I think they're going to get a monster boost because everyone kind of wants to see what they're gonna do with it. But just as long as it's not more of that campy Daredevil that we saw in She-Hulk, I think
No,
it'll be okay.
They got to bring in Punisher and the street level characters, Luke Cage and
Jessica Jones.
Jessica Jones. That would be nice. Keep things going there. I did not watch those on Netflix. I'm still trying to finish the Netflix Daredevil series, but that was good stuff. I mean, they did a great job. If they could keep that going for 2 years, I think that'd be great. And bringing in the Punisher before they bring him on the big screen, whatever it may be. There's plenty of stuff to use to keep that 18 episodes. Is it 18 or is it
18? Yeah,
18. Keep those 18 episodes very enjoyable.
More on the Charlie Cox front. Charlie Cox has no desire to add James Bond to his resume, and this is where I wish Ish was still here, instead of just bailing on us like that. Charlie Cox insisted he has zero interest in playing 007 as the Daredevil born again actor plays down the chances of him playing James Bond. He speaks in an interview with the same NME. Cox addressed the possibility of starring as James Bond, as the franchise has yet to confirm who will succeed Daniel Craig in the popular lead role. Despite playing M16 agent Adam Lawrence in the upcoming Netflix miniseries Treason, Cox does not consider himself a candidate to play Bond. Is my name even on the list? He asked while admitting into the interviewer wasn't the first person to suggest him in the role. Someone brought this up the other day, and they told me their odds for who will play the next Bond, then said, "Not for you," sadly, he added. So, yeah, I haven't even heard his name attached to the new James Bond, but I'm glad he's just kind of saying, "No, I'm good. I don't really need to add James Bond to my repertoire."
No, I mean he might do a decent job. I think I enjoy him as Daredevil. I mean, who knows how he would do as James Bond? The accent and whatnot, but again, he's not. His future is Daredevil. Next 18 episodes plus whatever MCU
plus
brings him in.
Marvel has in store for him.
I think that's where his bread is going to be buttered right there.
Yeah. Moving on, all you Avatar fans like myself, a new Avatar animated series is in the works, set after The Legend of Korra. If a new report is to be believed, Avatar: The Last Airbender sequel, The Legend of Korra, could be getting its very own sequel series in 2025. According to Avatar News, the next animated series in the Avatar universe focuses on an earthbender who succeeds Aang and Korra as the Avatar. It's currently in the works at Avatar Studios and Paramount. The new series is said to be targeting a 2025 launch. Moreover, Avatar News reports that an animated movie featuring this new Earth Avatar in this era is coming to theaters in the years after the show comes out. While the Avatar-centric news outlet has no specific information regarding the film's release window at this time, it does claim that it won't be an insanely long wait. I am a huge Avatar fan. Love the Avatar: The Last Airbender. Love The Legend of Korra. I'm stoked for anything and everything they're going to give me moving forward. I love the comics that are in between it. I love everything about this universe. I'm so stoked for anything and everything more Avatar. Give it to me all now. Yes, please. I'm interested to see more about an Earthbender Avatar. I mean, all we really got was Kyoshi. So it will be interesting to actually see a live working Earthbender Avatar. But I am down for anything and everything Avatar: The Last Airbender. So, like I said, yes, give me more, please. This news was like a Christmas present come early for me. Here's another one I wish Ish was here for, because I really want to get his opinion on this, and that's AI created comics can be deemed ineligible for copyright protection. Ish is coming back. Zaggy says, did they cancel the live action thing? No. So they do still have the live action coming to Netflix. The creators of Avatar were involved in that, and then they left due to disagreement in the project, artistic differences, we'll say. And they've since gone to Paramount Plus and are starting something as far as the Avatar universe goes at Paramount Plus and making movies over there. So the live action Netflix stuff will be separate from the actual Avatar universe, but it is still based. So it'll still be there. Ish, you're back. Universe is still based. So it'll still be there. Ish. I can hear you coming through the speakers, Ish.
Oh, can you turn that down?
Ish. Like 5 times I hear myself saying ish. Yeah, I can hear you. I like your profanity laced tag too.
Now we lost JP. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I don't know where JP went, but what is your thought on AI created comic books, Ish? What's your thought on AI art in general? Like, do you see this being a big hit to the comic book industry, or do you think it's just kind of like the next evolution, or just kind of nothing really to worry about at all?
I don't know. I think it's kind of there's one comic book out called The Abolition of Man, and it's interesting. I don't think it's going to take the comics world by storm, at least not now. Maybe until it makes like a comic that just blows people's minds, like the storytelling, and not just the gimmick that it's AI.
Well, the storytelling is still very human based. It's a human writing the story.
Gimmick.
It's a human writing the story. It's just telling describing to the AI it's like setting the stage for it essentially, and then the AI is drawing what it's been told. So there is an AI book out right now that the United States Copyright Office has.
Are you talking about?
Huh? I'm talking about your internet.
I was just saying, are you talking specifically about Abolition of Man, that AI comic?
No. I'm not talking specifically about Abolition of Man. But
because I think that the AI wrote the story too and did the art. It's an published comic.
No, so this one here that's at the center of this controversy is a book called Zariah of the Dawn. And so the U.S. Patent Office, I guess, originally ruled that AI art can be copyrighted, and then now they're coming back and a different court is saying no, because it's not created by a person, it's created by an AI, it is not able to be copyrighted. It's going to be a fair use product. So like the AI art, I know Hartman's like real big into this AI art stuff now, and that's just kind of coming on my radar a little bit, and some of it's really cool and some of it's really weird. I still don't really know how it's or if it's going to have an effect on the comic book industry. I guess then it would bail out. I don't know. I guess people like Aftershock wouldn't have to worry about paying people at that point. But
hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you no longer have to pay artists.
Yeah. All you have to worry about is distribution and stuff like that. I guess it cuts back your cost, but there's just something I think about.
Ultimately, it's up to us, the audience, if we buy those comics or not. If we're not spending our money on AI generated art, then it's not going to really do anything. If we start throwing tons at it, it could turn into a big giant beast.
I guess, when AI starts drawing Deadpool better than Rob Liefeld.
Can that even be possible?
I don't know. It's a tough world.
It is.
But
I guess for me, I collect because of the art. I don't collect because of the story. But for those that write the story and prefer that, for me, until they start drawing like Rob Liefeld or McFarlane, I would buy that for that reason. But if it's the story, then I don't think the AI could keep up with that.
Yeah, as the way you collect, it would be kind of a bigger hit to you, because then you're, as someone who only buys for the art aspect of it, it's like Ooh, does that really catch your eye as far as the AI art, or is there something just about? I mean, what is it about the art? Is just the iconicness behind it, or is it the way the style? Like, what is it about the comic book art that really grabs you?
I don't know. I was a big fan of McFarlane for the way he drew things. He drew Spider-Man in such a way that made sense for that type of character because he was so um, bendy, I guess we'll call it. But Jim Lee just did a great job with those bulky, muscle-bound type people. That he did a great job of that. But Mike Zeck and Shema and Ditko did a great job back in the 70s and 80s. So I mean those guys, the art is what did it for me back in the 90s, but then looking back at those guys, so it wasn't the story. But I mean, if you could redo that stuff and make covers like this Joker cover, let's call it, right? This is, I mean, I don't know who did this one. I'm sure it's somewhere on there, but this is just a great cover, right? Make an AI cover. I don't care who does it.
Bermejo.
I mean, it's just a great cover in my opinion. I don't care who did it, but it's artwork wise, it's a great cover.
Yeah, Eric Williamson says, he says, for a small creator like me, not paying an artist hundreds a page is appealing. Stealing isn't. He says, I think it's an interesting space. Have an AI drawn story in the works. Issues are that AI is appropriating other artists and artwork and reworking it. So, but then, is that stealing though? Because I mean, the way AI works, anyways, is to learn and adapt. It pulls information from different places. So at that point, if you're saying, well, I want this to be drawn in this art style, and it's pulling it and drawing it in that art style, or drawing something similar to what's already out there, I just think that's such a fine line to walk. I don't know. Cardi says it's great to create inspiration and quick fixes. Says yes, using it as a tool set is, but not for sale. For storyboarding mainly, but we shall see the landscape.
Well, how many people say that this day and age you have the artists who do the cover page like that Joker one I just showed, and they don't do the whole storyline? So why wouldn't it be a big deal if AI did it and you get the big name person to do the cover of it? What's wrong with that?
Well, but what Eric is touching on isn't just a problem as far as AI goes. Like, call back to this Spider-Man: The Last Hunt. Like, it's an homage to that Web of Spider-Man book, but it's like it's a direct homage almost. Like, there's very little change in it. That's the whole problem with like a lot of this do you poo stuff is it's almost the same exact cover as the main cover, just you replace the one character to look like Winnie the Pooh. Like, right. It's not. I feel like there's a lot of like even homage covers nowadays are getting too close to being just direct copies. Like it's like I said, it's all both kind of a fine line to me as far as that goes. Like, are you going to call someone out and be like, Tracer, this copy is so close. You made few little changes. Tracer, are you going to really sit there and just insult people's art like that? Like,
yeah, I mean you can, because it's not not a whole that different. So therefore, if it's going to be like, I've seen some Spawn covers that look like 300. I've seen some homage covers for 340 and whatnot, and they look different, but they got the same premise. But did you trace it? And that's what that's what that looks like, right? I mean, essentially, that's pretty close. The Web of Spider-Man you showed, that looks pretty close to the original one. There's not a whole lot of difference to it. It isn't. I've seen there's Hulk 340, and there's a Batman cover which I haven't bought yet. I'm not sure if it's a public one that you can buy, virgin variant and whatnot, but it looks like it, except Batman's holding his fist. He has these three bat razors he would throw, and they look just like Wolverine's claws. So that's different, but a homage. And that's what, in my opinion, that's creative, but not taking Web of Spider-Man and making like Scarlet Spider-Man or Ben Reilly on that, or name whoever on that same pose. That's just a copy, like you said, a tracing of it.
Eric says, I think the biggest issue is others getting paid for art inspired by something you drew, appropriating for an AI creation. I'm inspired, but I get the deal when money, livelihood is involved. Yes, exactly. It's essentially what it is. You're taking this would be taking people's livelihoods and artistic expression away. Cardi says you can feed images, you can make a base AI to generate around it. Okay. I don't know. I just, like I said, AI art is
DC
just
Comics doing now, like
well said, Ish. Well said, buddy.
I have no problem using a homage image like the 340, the 300, but you got to make it different in some regard to make it your creative addition to the world, right? So,
Well, I definitely I mean, 300 already is one of the most over homaged books. That, and then what Crisis on Infinite Earths, where Superman's holding Supergirl. Like those two covers and poses are like the most overused poses and covers in comic books.
Right, but again, McFarlane used that in I think it was 343 for Hulk, 300. I mean, again, it was different, but it was similar. But if you're going to homage it, like it looks like it's traced, then really, what's the creative? How did you create that? What's your creative background to that? Not there.
Well, I mean, don't get me started on McFarlane. Like he's he's a very he's one of those guys that's very known for homaging his self.
Yes.
Because if you look at the cover of Spider-Man 300 and the cover of Spider-Man 301, they're the same exact cover, just a different color, and you don't have all the 300s around it. So it's like, I don't know if they were just like, well, we don't have a cover for this issue. Let's just put Spider-Man in his regular costume, not in the black costume. Remove all the 300s, and we'll just make the cover a dead white, and we'll put a solid green. We'll just make the bubble solid green. It's like, all right, cool. It's just I don't know.
Could be. I mean, they've done it so many times. Even though in Spawn, he's done so many homages to that 300 cover. So I'm like, oh.
Cardi says, like I said before, when Liefeld starts making good feet, we should really think it over. But I don't know. Moving on, MCU fans, imagine Henry Cavill post-Superman career as Mr. Fantastic. This is a name that I had never thought of for Reed Richards, but I don't hate it. If I'm being honest, I don't hate it. Share on Reddit the fan art, which is an altered version of Alec Ross's timeless variant cover from 2020's Fantastic Four and 24, depicts the former Man of Steel as Reed Richards / Mr. Fantastic, a founding member of the Marvel's first family. I don't hate this. Like, I think he looks good as Reed Richards.
Is this the Reed Richards we want?
I don't hate it, man. Like, I mean,
I don't hate it, but I mean, I think he's a better Captain Britain
because he's English. Like,
I don't know, but put it this way: can he be Hyperion? I don't know. I mean, again, like I've said before, I don't read the comics. I know the artwork and whatnot. I know Sentry. Would Henry Cavill look good with like flowing blonde hair? Probably not.
No.
Would he look good as Captain Britain with a mask on for some of it? Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're paying Henry Cavill that much money, like, you don't want him to have a mask on his face the entire time. That's why,
but he won't be Doom then. But he can be Captain Britain, and they can change the mask somewhat to make it fit that part of it. But I mean, Reed Richards, that's a push. I mean, you need.
Well, then you'd be running into the Chris Evans territory where he only really had the mask on a little bit of the time, and even the majority of the time he was in his suit without his helmet on or what have you. So
yeah, that's not
I
a
just
bad idea.
I mean, you could get a good amount of years at him. He fits. He looks good in that. I don't know, man. Like he's one I never thought of for this character, but I gotta admit I kind of like it.
But Reed Richards is not supposed to be some type of tough guy genius. He's supposed to be a genius dork.
Well,
kind of like people who run a podcast.
I mean, look at if you watch that Enola Holmes where he plays Sherlock Holmes, he does a good job of being a smart intellectual person. So I think he could do that.
He's built to be a superhero. That guy.
He is.
I mean, Christopher Reeves was 1 in a million being Superman back in that day and age. He had the look. He had a lot going for him. This guy, Henry Cavill has the same thing. I just don't think he can play some nerd. He has to be some type of built superhero type of guy. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem.
What do you think, Ish? Are you falling asleep over there? Ish went night night.
This internet. Do you want to log on to my internet or something? What the hell?
Ish, at this point, you might as well just like go into your hotspot or something, buddy, on your phone. Ish fell asleep. Good night. He's awake. He popped up. He's awake.
He could have had a bad picture, but he had a decent picture. I give him credit.
Yeah. Ish is alive.
Ish must be a Packers fan.
No.
And are you a Packers fan your whole life?
Who, me?
Yeah. I'm not a Packers fan.
You got to be what fan are you?
Arizona Cardinals.
What? Last 5 minutes.
Beep, bop.
Here,
well said, Ish.
I kept cutting out.
Spoken like a true scholar, Ish. A true scholar.
So I'll ask Matt. He's been a Packers fan since when?
I've been a Packers fan my entire life, and it runs in my family because my dad grew up in Wisconsin. My grandfather grew up in Wisconsin. So my grandfather was good friends with Fuzzy Thurston, who was on the Packers. So my dad got to go to games at Lambeau Field. He's been into the locker room. Like I've gone to games at Lambeau Field. I was at the NFC Championship game, Brett Favre's last game as a Packer, where he threw an interception in overtime to lose to the New York Giants. I was at that game.
I was 06.
Yeah, I've just been. It's just a family thing, so it just kind of runs in our family that been Packers fans since the day I was born. Essentially, I've never been really other fan. The only other team, even though they're in the same division, being from Michigan, I do root for the Lions too, just because they're like the perennial losers. They lose all the time. So I would love to see a scenario where they could both make it into the playoffs, but right now
it could happen this year. But I mean, it's like rooting for your college team to make it to the NFL and play.
Yeah.
Like back in the day.
Yeah.
That's all right. I can give you that much because the people like I'm in Western Pennsylvania. And you got where I'm at, I got Bills fans, Cleveland fans, and Pittsburgh fans. Where the hell do the Green Bay people come in from here? Right? I can understand if you're one of those three fans, but unless you grew up that way, I can appreciate that. I grew up as a Steeler fan. I've been at the games, blah, blah, blah. You got this history. I can appreciate that. I think that's great. There's something about, like if you either woke up, you as a kid, you grew up and all I got was TBS, so I'm a Braves fan. That's great, right? All I could get was, again, back to comics and things like that. All I could find was Spider-Man, all I got was Batman. That's what my local shop carried. Great, man. That's where that came from. But you just pick the best team as a kid because of the Patriots, the Packers. Like you pick it because of your family, right? I think that has more and like enjoyment that way, or like your makeup in that regard. I think because that
It's
reason.
the allure of the franchise too, though, the history in it, the fact that they're the only, NFL team that's not owned by an owner. They're owned by the city of Green Bay. They're owned by the people. They're owned by the people that
Yeah,
spend $200 to $300 for
but
shares in their stock. And
you're in Arizona, right? Like that Cardinals, that team used to be where else? St. Louis, right? Right. So now
and Chicago. So yeah,
right. So they moved around, but those people that go week in and week out and have this built, they care about that team, even though they have no background, they have no history, they've won nothing. I guess you can take it with you from Cleveland or I mean from Chicago to different places they were, but they are diehards because that's their team. I give them credit for that. Like since you grew up because your family was a Green Bay fan, that's different than I just picked them because they were good in the 90s, right? Like the Cowboys or the Steelers or you name the team that was good, or I'm a Patriots fan because they were good the last 20 years. That has nothing. You live in Florida. Pick the Jaguars, pick the Buccaneers. That's your team. Like I think you need to be more along the line of where you live from. So either you got to have a history or you got to live in that city. That's the way I view it. You can't just pick the best team because I could pick, if I want to go into basketball, I could pick Cleveland. I could pick, what's his name from L.A., right? You got the, what's his name?
LeBron?
Not LeBron, oh shit. I'm not a big basketball guy at all. Shit.
The Clippers?
The Clippers and the other team that's in there that won
Golden State.
Mm-hmm. With what's his name? He can make any three. I'm not a big basketball guy, but I'm thinking like I could pick them as my team. And Golden Nuggets, I have all their stuff, right? For what reason?
But that's where like my house, like I'm trying to. My daughter, it's already set in my mind. My daughter's gonna be a Packers fan. My wife is like, well, I like the 49ers, but I also like the Packers. I was like, you got to pick one. You can't have more than one.
Why does she like the 49ers? Because she grew up because Montana was no.
I don't even know really I don't think she even knows her reason for loving the 49ers.
Right, but I think you got a great history on the Packers. As much as I hate the Packers, I'll give you that because you got a good history there with your grandfather.
Ish says I'm not a Packers fan. Nobody thought. I know you're.
Nobody is. Nobody is except anyone from Wisconsin. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. Came
she says
from
because
inside.
that's the team that got her into football. Well.
No, 49ers because of Joe Montana. I'll give you that.
But I think that's why everyone was a Cowboys fan because remember the 80s 90s. And early 90s where everyone where they were just win in the Super Bowl constantly, and
so were the Buffalo Bills. And I live in a town where Buffalo was
perennial losers. Buffalo Bills.
Yep. And I have people that live here like they brought out all their shit from the 90s. Like it didn't go bad 25 years ago and they're going to wear it now and they act like they're the best team in football. And they might be. We'll see. I'm not going to say they're not, but
I mean, I'll give it to fans. If you're willing to jump through a table and do half the stuff that the Bills fans do, more power to you. If you're willing to be a Philly fan and to meet the eating horse shit after they win the Super Bowl, more power on you there too. But
yeah, I have more respect for people that grew up with a team and then went through the bad time to the good time, and that's what makes a fan, right? So you were a Packers fan, and because of your lineage, right? Your grandfather you just mentioned on the phone, that's big to me. Again, that's me. Somebody else might be different, but if you grew up and you were a fan because of somebody else, or because even though when they were bad, you still watched them. That's what means more to me than I became a Patriots fan because they won every Super Bowl. That's just picking the best team.
I mean, and that's really like my only team that I'm. Otherwise, I'm a Michigan fan. I'm a baseball. I'm a diehard Tigers fan. Basketball, I'm a Pistons fan. Hockey, Red Wings fan. But not football is just the one that like I still pull for the Lions, and as long as they're not playing the Packers, and otherwise, But
sorry, you gotta have a reason for it, in my opinion. But again, that's me. You guys do what you want to do. But I always think you got to have some history as to why you chose that team. It can't just be because they've been good for a while. Because Aaron Rodgers is on every State Farm commercial. You got to have. There's some basis for it. Like I went to games as a kid. I met the Steelers. Like that's why they're mean a lot to me. They mean a lot to you because of your grandfather.
The Flash's first full trailer, speaking of football, has a release date, Super Bowl Sunday. The first full trailer for DC Studios' The Flash is on the way. The Wrap reports the new trailer will debut during the Super Bowl on Sunday, February 12th, 2023, which is right here in Arizona, 15 minutes from my house. Fans can get another glimpse later that week when the footage appears in the front of Marvel Studios' Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Screening starts February 16th, 2023. So it looks like if they're pulling out I think they're trying to recoup some of that $80 billion or whatever it was, $8 billion, whatever it was we reported on last week, that they're trying to recoup a little bit of that because it sounds like pushing a lot of money into promos for this Flash movie if they're going to buy ad space in the Super Bowl for this movie. Like, you're talking millions of dollars for like 15-second ads in the Super Bowl, and you're going to give us a good 1.5 minute to 2 minute trailer during the Super Bowl. I think they either feel really good about this movie or they're trying to recoup some money to get this in front of people to get it out there to go see it.
I don't know,
but
I wonder about this movie because it means nothing now. Like I said this last week that whole last minute or two of Black Adam meant nothing now. So how do you build a universe with these movies that they don't, that's not going to be part of the universe moving forward? I want to see this movie. If it has Michael Keaton in it, that means a lot more to me than Ezra Miller. But I mean, does it have a lot of bearing to what James Gunn's going to develop?
No, absolutely not.
So why not just wait till it comes out on, HBO Max? That's the
Eric Williams said, "Sweet, my DC Connect with the naked Ezra cover will be worth millions." Ish says, "I have a feeling we're getting Michael Keaton in the Flash movie." I think we are as well.
Yeah, but they're not going to use this Flash going forward, right?
They haven't said. I think if it comes out and it's a really good movie and it makes a crap ton of money, I think they'll move forward with it. I think it really just depends on what it does in the box office. If it comes out and is an absolute monster, then I think they'll move forward with more Ezra, because they have this dude's been in so much controversy, robbing people, fighting people, grooming people, kidnapping, leading a cult, whatever you want to call it. He's done so much that they've just kind of turned a blind eye to and said, all right, well, if you want anything going forward, you need to get help. And he's like, all right, I will. They've just turned a blind eye to so much that obviously they're pulling hard for this movie. They feel like something's here. And I think if it comes out and it's an absolute monster and like does really well in the box office, then they'll move forward with them. If it like it's an absolute dud, then I think they'll shit can him and move on to someone else.
Yeah, but you got this movie is going to have Michael Keaton in it and some type of multiverse situation going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
and I think they've tried to disconnect this movie from that stuff because they already removed. I think there was an Aquaman. I want to say there was a Wonder Woman and a Superman cameo that they were going to have in it that they've already cut out.
Yeah, but so you got this movie that's slated to do some type of interconnectivity to other movies going forward, and then there's nothing, right? So that's what I'm getting at. Like they're gonna have Michael Keaton into it, so that's why I would see it for that reason. But does that mean I care what the Flash is going to do forward? No, because of that. I'm watching it because of the Michael Keaton involvement going forward, but they took him out of everything else that's moving that's coming forward, right? All those other movies, they took Michael Keaton's involvement, the Batgirl movies, off the slate. This Flash movie, he's in that one, but there's been some other ones he might have been part of. So I'm like, well, what's the point of just seeing this? It has no bearing. It's like it has no bearing to what's going to happen, in my opinion. So sorry.
No, you're fine. But yeah, I don't know. I'll see it, and depending on the trailer, I think the trailer is going to be kind of that deciding factor, or just to see what all the fuss was about. I think something tells me that I think this movie will do well. I think The Flash will do well.
So
Not so sure about Aquaman or Shazam 2, but I think Flash will do well.
Yeah, I think it has a great premise, this movie, to bring back in the old Batman if he's still in it. And that may help us out. Or maybe Ezra's issues he had, that may help that movie. But you're right. Like Aquaman 2, knowing that he's going to probably be Lobo next, won't help that movie out. Right? So all those movies are going to, like the slated movies are going to die off. This is the one people are going to want to see, like Homecoming.
Yeah.
But it has no bearing. That's the unfortunate part about it. Like, I wish James Gunn could figure out a way to make this movie part of the going forward.
I mean, it would, if it's Flashpoint, it's a good reset. It would be a good reset point for all that stuff. But Cardi says Ezra's not making fans. Sony execs confirm next live-action Spider-Man movie is happening. Speaking to the Hollywood Reporter, Sony Pictures Entertainment chairperson Thomas Rothman confirmed that the studio will release another film for the Friendly Neighborhood webhead. When asked whether the studio has plans for another Spider-Man film, the executive responded, "You bet." Despite this confirmation, Roth did not reveal any further details regarding the project, admitting that not even he knows when it will premiere. When you can expect it, I don't know. Serve no wine before it's time, Rothman said. In late 2022, several so-called insiders insisted that Spider-Man 4 was entering advanced pre-production, but these claims were never verified. I think it's just another one of those. We're going to just misdirect until you get an announcement that it's coming. I believe that it's fast-tracked, especially after the success of Homecoming and No Way Home, and kind of the shambles Marvel's in as far as talking about moving movies and slates and having so many open dates. I wouldn't be surprised if Spider-Man is fast-tracked and they do take one of those slots. I guess it all just really depends on Tom Holland and how serious he is about taking a break from acting. So
there's got to be some involvement in that Secret Wars coming up, the black suit.
Yeah, you have to get all that.
Yep. But how does he fall into this whole Spider-Verse that's coming out next year, right?
I mean, he might make. I wonder if he'll make an appearance in it, if like animation form, if he'll voice a character in it or not.
I mean, you got that coming out. You got, if he's not involved in that, that's going to be 2 movies, so that'll come out this year, and then pretty much nothing until 2025, right? I don't know if there's another Spider-Man movie on the docket till then, so you're not going to have any involvement until 2025 with Secret Wars and potentially that black suit. So, I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if they're going to go the black suit route. If we don't get a Spider-Man movie till, like, if you get Spider-Man 4 and then the Avengers Secret Wars, if they just roll right into if Spider-Man rolls right into that with the black suit stuff, because we know that they make you feel like at the end of No Way Home, they make you feel like that the Venom symbiote does not exist in the MCU, and so now it does, since a part of it was left behind. So it makes it kind of feel like that's going to be searching out Spider-Man.
But do we think maybe with the Spider-Verse that we're going to have a Miles Morales sometime connection to this universe, that universe,
I don't know,
into this one?
I get the feeling that Sony's kind of said Miles Morales is going to be our Spider-Man, and we're going to do, our stuff with him, and Marvel can use Peter Parker and do their stuff with them. So like you can use the Peter Parker in the MCU and in these movies, and we'll just slap the Sony Studios label on it. We'll go about our day, and we're gonna make our movies in animation with Miles Morales and the Spider-Verse. Because I mean,
don't you
Into the
think
Spider-Verse was a massive hit, and I can only imagine that Across the Spider-Verse is gonna be a massive hit.
but don't you think Marvel wants to bring that into their forefront here somehow?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Miles Morales is really on their radar. I mean, I know in the first in Homecoming you have his uncle Aaron, and he's mentioned. He says, I have a nephew, yada yada yada. But I really don't know if getting Miles Morales in the MCU is in the forefront of their plans right now. That's a great question, but I just don't. I don't know. I don't see.
Well, think of the MCU adding all these diversity to their slate,
Yeah.
right or wrong. Why wouldn't you try to add Miles Morales to that? And again, I heard today. I listened to one of a podcast that mentioned that Miles Morales' books don't really command much these days because they don't get the sales that any other Peter Parker book gets. But when it comes to the Miles Morales movie or game, it's much different. So if they promote him Sony-wise through the movies and the MCU promotes him, then that might catapult that Peter Parker, that Spider-Man into the future, right? Future MCU, right? We're going to have him in the Secret Wars. We're going to have him in going forward, right? The Miles Morales. Apparently he can't hold a title to himself, but he can definitely do pretty well when it comes to the gaming part of it or the comic book part early, like that UF4. Other than that,
I think it's I don't agree with that at all, because like I think Miles suffers from who's writing him. When Bendis created him and Bendis was writing him and Pacelli was drawing it, like that book was on fire. Like UF Ultimate Fallout 4, that book was on fire. Miles was everywhere. Everybody couldn't get enough Miles. Everybody wanted more. And now I think it's like the last creative team, I can't remember who was writing before. After Bendis left, the book kind of fell off a little bit. I'm interested to see if that new issue 1 that just came out a few weeks ago kind of relaunches that book. I picked it up just to see what was going on with it. I think Miles is one of those very special characters that you have to handle just right, because in a lot of ways you're messing with another character's lineage. You're messing with another character's legacy. So with him taking over for Peter Parker and giving that Spider-Man title, you got to be very careful not to screw up that legacy of the Spider-Man name. Zaggy says raw copies still 300 plus for Miles, a hidden dragon. He's a hidden dragon. Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of speculators don't want to admit that the reason we're seeing a downturn in these books is because the market's cooling off. People don't have that COVID money anymore, that dispensable income that they had, and it's just the comic book market as a whole is cooling off. Like we just saw one of the a big independent publisher in Aftershock file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Yeah, they can. It means they can still kind of operate while they figure out their financial situations, but I think there's a lot of that downturn and the cooling off of books has to do with the market, and people just aren't spending money on comics the way they were before, because you have all these big boy books dropping. Like it's not just Miles, it's not just Ultimate Fallout 4. Like you can't before a year ago, Spider-Gwen, you couldn't find Edge of Spider-Verse 2, for a decent price. Like even her book was there's my local comic shop has that book sitting 9.8 for $3,000 right now, and they can't move it. It's been there for a year. They can't move it. I think a lot of it has to do with the market cooling off, and a lot of these speculators who bought in bulk and now it's biting them in the ass are like, well, it's not, it's because this character isn't driving interest, or they're not using these characters in the MCU. I think the MCU doesn't have anything to do with it. I think it's just people are getting hip to FOMO. People are realizing that FOMO is real, and they're not going to, and they're understanding if you're buying a book to sell it and you haven't already had it before that person debuts, that you're behind the 8 ball. Like with so many shows on YouTube that people are getting into, and how the pandemic kind of had a positive effect on the comic book industry, and so many people started watching speculation shows and comic book shows on the internet like this and other shows. It's just like Comic Tom and all that stuff. I think people are getting more hip to it now, and so it's changing the market in a drastic way.
But do you think that this new Peter Parker, this new iteration of Spider-Man, is a similar to an AF-15 years and years later? Like, so having this makes sense. This is a key collectible to someone who's a Spider-Man character.
It's hard to say, because I think we're still very much in the infancy of Miles Morales. I think in order to really, they have to be able to separate him from Peter Parker's legacy as Spider-Man and kind of give him his own. Because I think with Spider-Man, if they give Miles his own villains in his own rogues gallery separate from Peter Parker's, then I could see a time when Ultimate Fallout 4 becomes the AF-15 of our time. But the fact that they keep that lineage so close, and he's constantly fighting regurgitated Spider-Man villains, and that's really, to me, what makes Spider-Man. What makes Spider-Man is his rogues gallery, is his villains, and how iconic his villains. Like, what's Batman without the Joker? Like, right. What's Spider-Man without the Green Goblin? What's Superman without Lex Luthor? Like, it's their rogues gallery that make these characters what they are. And if you just regurgitate these new heroes to fight the already established rogues, and you're not giving them a chance to stand on their own, then no, I don't really see much of anything measuring up to like AF-15 or Action Comics 1 or anything like that, Yeah,
that's the biggest problem, is they just haven't been able to continue. That Miles, they've redone his story how many times, and they've rebooted him over and over again, and he hasn't been able to keep a title except for that UF4. And I don't know if he was just another white Spider-Man, it would have taken off like it did. I don't know.
I think it keeps the title. Like, he's had long runs,
right? But he has not sold out. I listened to the Comic Con podcast. There's a couple guys from the a show that's on Lords of Longbox, and they do a show on every Friday. And one of the guys they brought on last week he has his own comic book, his own comic book community called ISM, I think is the name of it. But essentially, he compared, and he said, my book that he does with this brand new character called ISM, I think that's the name of it. Sorry if I mess it up. But his character has sold more copies than Miles Morales as Spider-Man. So the fact that Spider-Man is not as popular as Miles Morales and has had reboots throughout the last since 2014 is the problem. Like, Miles Morales today does not outsell Peter Parker,
and he probably never will. But I mean, people don't have that same, like, it's hard to say, because kids growing up now, like, in 10 years, is it going to be the same way? In 10 years, Miles might be the Spider-Man. He might be, because it's just kids growing up with that character. Like,
when I grew up, okay, my favorite players in baseball were Darryl Strawberry and Tony Gwynn. I had no idea that they were black or white. I just liked them because of the way they played. It wasn't until I was older, till someone pointed it out to me, that there was some difference in their color as to mine, right? Unfortunately, right? So my kids who know Miles Morales know him as Miles Morales. That's how they know him.
Mhm.
I knew Peter Parker because that was the Spider-Man that I collected, but my kids know Miles Morales. So like that could take off because of that reason, because they know him as just Spider-Man. It has nothing to do with the color. My kids don't. I don't think you have to equate to somebody. You have to relate to somebody because of their color. You have to relate to them because something they do is, to your liking. Color has nothing to do with it, right? So therefore, if they like Miles, they like Miles, and because he has cool music, he has cool this and that. Great. I mean, that could propel that character forward. But I guess according to what the podcast I watched last week, they said that he didn't have any staying power. But I don't think that's the case, because my kids are big fans of him for various reasons, just because they think he's cool.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case either. Like Zaggy just said, go to cons, little kids are asking for Miles constantly. Like Miles covers still sell huge. You see Miles cosplayed everywhere. Into the Spider-Verse was a massive movie. I don't know how you can say he has no staying power. Honestly, I think really the character, the way I see it anyway, is as much as I love Peter Parker, I think he's the one without the staying power, because all these people who grew up on Peter Parker, like, you grew up on him, I grew up on him through different means, through the comics, through Spider-Man the animated series, through all these different mediums. Now they're kind of shifting that focus to Miles, so you're kind of getting all that with Miles. So it's like the kids growing up now are going to grow up as Miles as their Spider-Man, so Peter's going to get etched out more versus Miles. I think in 10 years, Miles will be the Spider-Man. It won't be so much Peter Parker anymore versus Miles, because all these kids that are growing up now are going to know, well, Miles was my Spider-Man. It's just, I think it's all like we were talking with football. I think it's all on how you connect to these characters and what they mean to you. And I think the interesting thing to me about Spider-Man is that Peter Parker is everyone kind of relates to him because he has the same problems we all do. Like, other than having superpowers, like his personal life is a lot like a lot of ours. And Miles, I think the intriguing thing in Miles is he has just as much conflict as Miles Morales as he does Spider-Man. And I think a lot of their writing is they choose to focus more on Miles as an individual versus Spider-Man. So a lot of his conflict is as Miles Morales, not as Spider-Man. So that's why I think it's more like, oh, well, that's Miles Morales. That's Miles. He gets recognized more as Miles Morales versus being Spider-Man, because the majority of his conflict is about who he is, being, multiracial, being black and Puerto Rican, I think he is, and things like that. So it just the way the character is. I think it's it's a bold statement to say Miles has no staying power. Like,
yeah, but the thing of it is that who said that was a black artist who has his own comic book company. So I thought that was interesting to say that Miles has no staying power because he hasn't been able to outsell Peter Parker. But my kids know who Miles is, and I prefer them not to know Miles is just somebody they like, not because of his color, just because they think his stories are good.
well, that's like saying that Nightwing has no staying power because he's not outselling Batman. Like, you're not going to outsell at this point in the game. Like, that's not even a fair comparison, because Peter Parker's a juggernaut. Superman's a juggernaut. That's like saying Jonathan Kent isn't outselling Superboy, doesn't outsell Superman, so he has no staying power. I think it's just different. It's going to be different genres, and different age groups, and just.
But if you have a brand new comic coming out that has no universe at all, no background, can outsell a Miles Morales book, was the point of this.
It should.
Isom. It's called Isom. ISOM. He sells more books himself through the universe he created versus Miles.
It should, and I'm here to tell you, your first 10 issues should outsell. You know why that is? That's called intrigue. That's called people saying, "Hey, what's this? This whole new world, something they know nothing about, getting in on the ground level, in following along with that." Like, Spider-Man Miles has been around for a few years now. So like it's very hard to get the really it's not, but it is in some cases to get an Ultimate Fallout 4, to get that, Ultimate Comics Spider-Man #1, the first Miles led story. It's Ish says Ism is a $35 comic.
It's pretty
So
good
there
for
you
like a comic that just came out, right?
Well, I mean, is it they're charging $35 right, that like shelf price, or is that what it's going for secondary market?
I don't know.
SRP is 30. Oh, it says SRP is $35. So that means they're charging $35 for that book, and it's a Kickstarter book right off the rip. So yeah, it's people being intrigued in buying into what the guy's selling.
Right, and I listened to him. I thought he had. I thought the information he had. I mean, it made sense and whatnot. Not time to go out and buy the book, but like if that book's outselling Miles, I'm saying to myself, and he's a black rapper, why is he not buying that book? Right? I want my kid to just buy the book because he wants that book. I don't need you to relate to the. I mean, again, I related to people because I didn't relate to him. I liked Tony Gwynn because he was a great baseball player. I don't care what color he was, right? Right? It had nothing to do with that. Like if I like Peter Parker because he was Spider-Man, that was cool. He could have been red or green. I don't really care. So my kid said, "Oh, he likes Miles. Great. I'm all about that." It has nothing to do with that it has to fit your background. It has to do with it fits your liking. And if that's what Miles has going forward, then that's the staying power of Miles. But if that you're telling me that other books outsell Miles, that makes me wonder, like, will this guy still be around in 10 years? I don't know. And that's my question. Like UF4 is a big book. It's a big grail this day and age. But if it's not sticking around because they're saying it's not big for certain groups of people, it's not for various reasons, then it's not an AF-15 20 years from now.
I just think you have to be real careful with. There's a lot of market manipulation that goes on, and being someone who is part of a channel that was very spec heavy and seeing what's behind the scenes, there's a lot of market manipulation that goes on. So you're going to have a lot of these influencers that are going to come out and say, oh, well, this book, there's no staying power here, da, 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 da. So they hope the market on that book cools off even further to where they can buy in quantity and then turn around and pump the shit out of that book and, triple their money. So when you're listening to what people say on shows like this, I mean, not this one, of course, we only give you the best information ever. This is the one you listen to. This and then Absolute Game of Nerds, like that's it. But there's a lot of market manipulation that happens. A lot of pump. We call it pump. I'm sure you're familiar with the term pump and dump. Yeah. So there's a lot of that where a lot of this time these books have no real significance and they're never going to play out, but they're going to pump the shit out of them because they're sitting on tons and tons and tons and tons and copies of them. Like, pay attention to Instagram. There's a lot of other channels out there where they'll talk about the hot books of the week, the hot 10 of the week, and then you go on Instagram and one person that's on that show is showing off 70 copies of that book. Like there is a lot of market manipulation going on, and so you got to just watch out for that too. But as far as that dude outselling Miles, well, if you're doing a Kickstarter and you're starting a whole new world and you're selling your book at SRP $35 and people have already thrown $2 million at you over Kickstarter, if you're offering them something new that they haven't seen before and people are going to want to check it out, absolutely it should. Your first 10 issues should outsell Miles Morales in its current state. Okay. But put those 10 issues up against sales for Ultimate Fallout 4 or even sales for Miles Morales' first series, and I have a feeling they don't stack up.
Oh, that's a good point, because the way they made it sound, I was like, well, okay, these books, like I'm out selling Miles Morales from X, Y, and Z, and this is coming from a black rapper who would have some type of tie into Miles, right? Like, again, my kids collect whatever they collect. I was a big fan of Daryl Strawberry just because of his play. Had nothing to do with what he looked like, right? So if my kids like Miles, great. If that, I don't think they have to look like you in order to idolize them, in my opinion. But apparently, based on what this rapper had said, black collectors, and his book, he got more play than Miles. And I was like, what happened here? I mean, is Miles just on a book that's going to do good for long term? Is he just like, oh, we got the AF-15 of the 2010s. We're going to stack this away, and someday we're going to make our money back on this thing. But, Peter Parker is always going to be here. I don't know.
That sounds like someone trying to be like their own hype man, trying to hype their own brand. And
yeah, could be. I mean,
I loved, regardless of race or whatever, I loved Miles' first two series, like Ultimate Fallout, Miles Morales, and then Miles Morales Spider-Man. I loved those first two runs of Miles. And then it kind of went in a direction where I didn't like where they were taking the character, so I kind of fell off on it. So, but to say Miles doesn't have the staying power,
they keep saying he has to be rebooted every time. And I think with the Spider-Verse and the game, then yeah, I think it's great. Like, my kids, we grew up in the 90s where the multicultural side of our lives became, very hype, exemplified. We'll put it through that since the 90s. And that's not a bad thing. And my kids are a part of that. And I think that's okay that they can, like whoever you like. But the fact that they're saying like that this had to be hyped because it didn't do well, so I had to redo it and do it again and blah blah blah. Like,
that's comics though. Like, how many times have they killed and brought back Norman Osborn? How many times?
How many times they've done it with Peter Parker? Like, I say to myself, who's someone who just picked up an Ultimate Fallout, I'm thinking, how many times have they done this guy since 2014? They redid him. Like, doesn't have staying power? I've seen the Spider-Verse movie. I thought it was cool. I mean, did I miss something here? Is he not as big of a character or what? Like, does he have staying power? And I think he does, in my opinion, based on what may happen in Marvel in the coming years. So I'm okay with holding that book on investment purposes. But does Miles have a bigger impact to the world? Yes. I think he's a great character to add into this Marvel MCU coming forward here.
But that was the Marvel. I mean, that was the Marvel method for a long time. Is, it was reboot every year. Every year we're going to reboot for the new number one. Like, they had, they just, the last few, I want to say 10 years, you had the end of the Dan Slott. You had the Dan Slott stuff that went into Superior Spider-Man. Then Superior Spider-Man, where Doc Ock was Spider-Man, spun out into a new series, and then it just got rebooted again, and they just recently rebooted it again. So it's just like they're constantly rebooting these characters. Like, I can't tell you how many times Spider-Man's been rebooted. Look how many times Batman's been rebooted. How many times Superman. Like, there's a reason they have legacy numbers, because these series have been rebooted so many times, or so many different volumes. And so to say that, oh well, Miles keeps getting rebooted and rebooted, it's because they change creative teams. So the creative team that's on that book for that long span ends their story arc, and then a new creative team takes over. So why not start over at new number one, new creative team, new stories, new path for this character. So I think for them to, for this person to say, oh well, he has no staying power because they rebooted him, but that doesn't make sense.
The fact that it was a black person that said that made me think, like, there's someone I listen to. It's Bronze and Modern Gods. It's a podcast, and the one Richard, I think he's black, right? So he has a lot of connection to Miles Morales. This guy, same way, right? So I can see that, right, from that aspect of it, and that's why they would be a big fan of Miles from what they said. But he's like, no, like, this guy has no staying power. does not outsell. He does not outsell Peter Parker, and that was
Yeah.
surprising to me because this is like my kids could care less what Peter Parker looked like. They like the story, right? Miles is a cool character, and they've seen it across the Spider-Verse. They've seen the Spider-Verse movie, but trying to tell me that Miles did not outsell Peter Parker was like, wow, that's in this day and age, in this push from Marvel. How does that not happen?
Well, look, let's look at this. So Miles Morales came out. His first appearance. When was Ultimate Fallout 4? When did that come out? That came out in
2014.
2014. All right. Spider-Man's first appearance. Amazing Fantasy 15 came out when?
1963. 60.
Oh, you're talking. Peter has had all that more time. Peter started it first. Like he was the original, and Spider-Man. There's just you've got such a massive year gap, between these characters. You can't compare them. That's like comparing Dr. Pepper to Dr. Thunder, or it's you can't say that. Oh well, because he's not outselling Peter, he has no staying power.
Right, but you have a new group of people coming in to the collecting, like that are not what you and I look like, and that's a great thing. And in my eyes, I think it's great to have more people in the collecting world, right? And they got to have their heroes. Like Superman was white; he needs to stay white, in my opinion. But Miles, I think it's a different take. There's a different take on Superman. That's great to involve that. So those characters that came in as different, the people that identified as that, and the people that didn't, and just got into it, then that's a great time that they got involved in that. What happened?
I don't think race plays that big a deal into it. Like I fully support if you're a black kid growing up and you gravitate to Miles because he's a black kid, like that's awesome. Like that's relatability. But I think it's more so like the stories and how these characters make you feel and how their situations make you feel. And I think not saying that you're doing this, but for someone to appropriate this character's worth just to their race, and that oh well, because this character is black and the black community isn't buying into it and he's got no staying power, that doesn't really make sense or compute to me, because it should be more about the character, their stories, how they make you feel, how you relate to them, how you connect to them, how they move the superhero genre forward. But it's like Peter Parker started it all. Like you're not gonna beat up, you're not gonna outsell Peter. As long as Peter Parker's on the newsstands, you're not gonna outsell Peter Parker. There's a lot of Marvel books that are Peter Parker is like the number one. Spider-Man is the number one selling book in Marvel almost every month. So like most of the heroes in the Marvel slate are not outselling Spider-Man.
Right, but my thought is, if you got someone who's a black consumer who has telling me that's what they're buying, right? So they're still outselling. They're buying more Peter Parker than they are Miles. Why the change, right? Why did they make this whole universe thing and not push it forward, right? If it didn't have staying power, then why are we paying big dollars for the
right
UF4? That's my question.
Probably because he connected with Spider-Man first. He connected with Peter Parker first. Peter Parker, he found something in that character before Miles came along. Like I said, Miles is his powers until he gets his own rogues gallery. He's just a knockoff of Peter Parker, and that's all it is.
In a different universe, and again, and that's okay. But I'm thinking I think that's a cool take on it, because I don't look at the color of things, because again, I like baseball players because how they played. Right. I like Spider-Man. I like the black suit Spider-Man. That was the first one because it was a cool looking costume, not because of black or white. It's just that's what it was. So I think if it comes on a color, then maybe Miles makes sense because kids in the inner city or wherever it may be have some type of relationship to it, but it has to be prolonged to make it last, right? It has to be something that has some staying power, and that's what I want it to have. I want it to be more of a, not just changing the character, but getting some type of connection with other people to make the character move, grow within our worlds. Here is what I'm saying. So
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, but like in that standpoint, like I said before, if you're making a new character that is a new world, like your first 5 to 10 issues should outsell someone like Miles, because it's people are getting in or trying to get invested in your world and what you're building, your sandbox you're playing in, as to where you already kind of know the sandbox Miles plays in. So you're on two different levels there. Like I don't know. To me, just saying, well, Miles has no staying power because he's not outselling Peter Parker doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense to me saying like a black collector saying, like a black person who's producing books to say that to me. I think that's, I'm like, wow. Then why aren't you buying Miles? Be like, there's a reason. Like I'm not buying Peter because he's white. Like, but kids who maybe look more like Miles might buy more of that. So therefore, if he's not outselling, then but they're buying this other book, Ism, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that. Why is that? Why?
Because it's a new product. It all depends on how it's being. We are a race of, it's all on how it's sold to you. It's how it's like, what are you being sold? How's it being pitched? How's it being marketed? How's it being sold to you? And if it's like, it's the greatest thing since the invention of Coca-Cola, or the greatest thing since sliced bread, or the greatest thing since Viagra. It's all in how it's advertised to you that's going to draw you to come check out this book. So if this dude is good at hustling and promoting his own brand and promoting his own book, and people flock to it, like Kickstarter, people are flocking to it to support it on Kickstarter. It's all in what this guy's putting out in his own self publicity. Peter are gonna like, check it out just to be on board with it. Because what if it does pop off? Like, look at The Walking Dead, man. Like, The Walking Dead popped off. Like, it's just you're never gonna it's, I don't want to say never, but like the chances of you replicating the success of like ultimate, of it, Amazing Fantasy 15, or Action Comics 1, or Detective Comics, or any of those big keys is like next to none. Like, it's very, like, if you can recapture that, like the fact that Walking Dead popped off the way it did, the fact that Miles popped off the way it did, and that book still goes for big money, like it to me it speaks volumes. Like, I don't know. Miles is hip. He's with it. He's cool. He's what the kids want. He's marketed to a new generation of people getting in the comic book industry. And like, it's just, I don't know. To me, saying Miles has no staying power, it's like flabbergasting, honestly, because like you just watch the way people like eat up Miles stuff, and all these kids that watch the like Spider-Man cartoon and stuff. And I think that's the other thing that does it too, is that people know him as Miles Morales, because if you watch like what's I can't think of the name of the Spider-Man cartoon that's on Disney and stuff, where they're like younger kids. Somebody help me out in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. God damn it. What am I? It's God, it's on Disney Plus. It's on Netflix. I want to say it's like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, or something along those lines. Spider-Man and Friends, thank you, honey. Something like that. They don't even refer to him as Miles Morales. They refer to him as something else. So it's Spidey and Friends. Thank you, Ish. Like, they don't even refer to him as Miles Morales in that show. So that's like the forefront of the show that's in front of kids. So they know him as Miles Morales, not as Spider-Man, because he's not referred to as that. You know, that's
and that's I heard that's the one I'm talking about. Like they've interjected that into our kids' world. Like I have younger kids. Your kids aren't watching TV yet, Matt. So different story. But that's the Miles they're gonna know. My kids are gonna know, and that's what they've known for the past 5 years, right?
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, they
I
call him
think that-
Spin. He's known as Spin in that show. He's not known as Miles Morales he's not known as Spider-Man. He's known as Miles Morales or Spin. So it's like there's that disconnect right there. Like, okay, kids aren't knowing him as Spider-Man because he's not being marketed to them as Spider-Man other than like Into the Spider-Verse, you know? The stuff that's in their face constantly, like the show, he's being marketed as Miles Morales or as Spin. So I don't know.
When did I call him Spin? I never heard that one before.
It's it's called Spidey and His Friends. It's like a animated series that's on Netflix and Disney Plus. It's marketed towards like littler kids. I want to say like 6 and up, if that. And they have Peter Parker as Spider-Man. They have Miles Morales as Spin, and then Gwen Stacy as Ghost. So
I had not known that. Spin. That's crazy. All these years.
But moving on here to our last story of the night. Movie studios can be sued over misleading trailers, a judge rules. Basically, a lawsuit seeking damages from Universal for featuring Ana de Armas in the trailer for Yesterday will move forward in court. Universal was dealt a blow in a lawsuit brought on by fans of actor Ana de Armas over her appearance in a trailer for the movie that she's not actually in. A Variety reports 2 fans of the Blade Runner 2049 and No Time to Die actor sued the studio in January 2022, claiming they rented the movie Yesterday after seeing de Armas in the trailer, only to discover that she was cut out of the final film. Universal moved to have the lawsuit dismissed, arguing that movie trailers are entitled to be protected as free speech under the First Amendment. According to a studio's legal team, a trailer consists of an artistic, expressive work that tells a 3-minute story conveying the theme of the movie. It should therefore be considered non-commercial speech. However, U.S. District Judge Stephen Wilson rejected Universal's argument, ruling trailers fall under commercial speech and are subject to California's false advertising laws and the state's unfair compensation law. The case is going to move forward. It will need to proceed to a discovery and a motion of class certification. I wish that Ish was on for this, since he was in the movie industry. He could probably speak on this a little bit more, but to me, this is kind of like, okay, I think everyone's just used to the fact that not everything that's in the trailer makes it into the final cut of the movie. I don't know. Eric Williams says men purchase 63% of comics and graphic novels. The remaining purchases are 13% Latino, 14% Black, and 5% Asian. I'd like to see where you got that breakdown, Eric. That's pretty specific. It's a pretty specific breakdown. But yeah, that's good to bring up about the Spider-Man stuff, though, JP. Like, that was a good topic, I think.
No, yeah, That's one of my biggest pet peeves is that I hear about that movie, and so therefore when you have another questionable, you know, you had to regarding the most recent. Sorry, I just spilled something all over my desk here, so I apologize. But you were saying about the.
I appreciate the tour of the house. I like that.
Sorry about
we're
that.
on episode of MTV Cribs.
Yeah, but I mean, you were just showing that the what you were talking about was. Oh, Jesus, remind me the change the actress and whatnot.
Yeah, the trailers that they're gonna start suing over, things being cut out of trailers as false advertising.
Right. So that's not really. It boggles my mind as people say, "Come on now, we know what's out there. We know, we're not suing for this. To sue for that kind of stuff is beyond my reach. Why you would sue for that kind of stuff is just ridiculous. More ways than one. So stick with what you see in the theater, and if does that open up the world to say if the movie, if the version was not good enough for you, you're going to sue them for that too? Come on now.
I think it would be because I'd sue for a hot minute for some of this stuff.
Yeah, like you're going too far here. What the hell?
Like, I'd like to see Ish's take on it. If his internet wasn't, I should sue Ish for having crappy internet.
I think we should sue Ish, and he should give me an Iron Man 1 for what I need, so I can
for as reparations for having crappy internet.
Exactly.
So it should be. Well, you got anything else you want to touch on this week, JP?
Me, I mean, we got the newest episode, episode 2 of the Absolute Game of Nerds, talking about the hunt for 181. That was our big thing. This going into next year, we're going to talk about how me and Rohan want to get that book and what it might take to get that book. But then the next episode will be about what we've gotten in 2022 and what we might try to get in 2023. So, given this market, right? So you got these movies coming out and how that might sway it, like how that Miles Morales, Into the Spider-Verse movie might change the universe for, or the background for getting that UF4, or what else may come out in this year that may really stir the pot for for the Marvel books.
I think if you're counting on in the Across the Spider-Verse to do something for characters, it's not going to be UF4 that is the pusher. It's going to be some of these other Spider-Man. It's going to be like your Punk Spider. Might do a little bit something for Spider-Man 2099. Your offshoot Spider-Man that appear into, like, look at the first one. The first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie did a lot for, yes, Miles, yes, Spider-Gwen, but it did a lot for, the Penny Parker. It did a lot for Spider-Man Noir. It did a lot for just Spider-Ham, these different, versions of these characters that spec heavy on that. But
well, the one
spec on Hypno Hustle right now, or Hustler right now.
Spider-Man, the Ben Reilly Spider-Man.
I mean, it might do something for that character too, for Scarlet Spider, but
that's what I'm wondering about. I mean, again, anything could happen. Like, again, you gotta. We say you gotta collect what you like, right? Mm-hmm. So if you like Miles, grab that kind of stuff. If you like Peter Parker, grab that kind of stuff. If you like the Ben Reilly stuff, grab that. Again,
read what you like.
Right. These shows may move stuff, but it never lasts unless the character does. And that was the question earlier on about Miles. Will he last like Peter Parker did? I don't know. I mean, I think he will. Will Ben Reilly? That's a different story. But will Miles Morales moving from today, 50 years from now, versus Peter Parker now 50 years back, like that? Like, you got to change for your audience, and I think that's what Miles does. That's why he may have staying power, in my opinion. and Peter Parker still will have staying power because of his originality, but others ones like Ben Reilly and whatnot may not have the same staying power because you're changing with your times, right?
Mhm.
And that's important for longevity of your character.
Well, like I think, like I said, I could see Ben Reilly getting more play as Chasm, his current incarnation, versus the Scarlet Spider stuff, just because that clone stuff gets so convoluted. I think it's hard for audiences to sift through. So if you give him like Chasm and spin it a different way, then Ben Reilly could take off and be something great too. But Ish says that they have 3 Iron Man #1s, Mr. JP.
I'm game.
Ish, JP's been waiting to talk to you for like a month plus now.
I did call him about that, but it was a little bit higher than what I had available in the old
bank account
or the combined bank account. Me and Rohan, we can't really afford that kind of money for that stuff. We talk about in the most recent Hunt for 181, like how we can achieve these books, and I have to sell lots and lots and lots of pizzas to be able to afford these kind of books. So we can't just buy this Iron Man 3 and then I got to wait months and months and months to buy 181. So
yeah, like Ish just said, Miles still has tons of room to grow in the market.
I hope so, because I got a book for that could grow, and I could maybe buy the Iron Man 1-ish if you want to sell it.
We have 2 181s. Oh, there you go.
How much do you want for them? I mean, that's part of what we talked about recently. Like, again, you can buy what you want, but I don't know how many people out there don't just like you buy what you want and you put in your collection, but there's a reason for that you buy a certain book and that has some type of growing power, so that's why you buy that one. There's people that just buy it no matter what and don't care what the book grows to, but I'm the type of person that book has to grow in some capacity. I'm not saying like it has to triple, double, whatever it may be, but what does 181 going to do in the next 20 years? I don't know. What is Miles going to do?
So 181 is going to, it's trending, it's cooling off, but the minute Wolverine pops up in the MCU, that book's going to blow up again.
Right, but ask yourself the same question. Like back in 2002, whenever you had the X-Men books, did the X-Men, did the Wolverine comic 181 take off? Probably, but did it? The 2000s didn't have great movies, right? You had that 90s period where books picked up, and then you had that 2000s period where you had movies actually get on the big screen, and we got to see our big characters. But I don't think it really equated to that comic boom that we saw recently.
The correlation of movie to book and first appearance really didn't boom until the MCU started to boom. So those early X-Men movies and that Spider-Man doesn't really affect the market because there really wasn't a market at that time. Like that boom wasn't there. The MCU is kind of really what started that boom as far as like, oh, well, this character's in the movie, so now we're going to speculate on it. It's going to reflect on selling key first appearances and things like that. Like that, I don't think anyway that market was even there in the early 2000s like right, it is now.
But think about your first Punisher book. That was a horrible movie. So was the Silver Surfer movies, right? And they didn't move the books, but now those books are moving because there may be a movie coming out. And same thing with Punisher. But again, those are Golden Age books. Those are Silver Age books. Those are Bronze Age books that you're not going to see again. So they should have some type of staying power. But it seems like they're growing in popularity because they may see them in a movie. And those characters were already in movies that were broadcast through a different network.
You're such a philosopher, Ish. It grows as you grow. And Airplane says, I think Hulk 181 is way overrated. The market is saturated with them.
I said in our most recent that podcast we did about hunting that 181. when I want to go, I'm not a big hunter, right? So I got a couple acres behind my house. I can go out in my backyard and I can set up a deer blind and I can shoot a deer with a crossbow, right? And I can see where the deer walk. There's this big path that they walk through. When I have the deer blind set up, no deer walk through that path. I shoot no deer. But they're always out there. Whenever I'm driving my car, there's the deer, right? Just like Hulk 181. When I want to buy it, it's not there, right? But when I drive through my neighborhood or I go to the comic shop or the Comic Con, they're always there, right? But they're always that version that doesn't have the Marvel value stamp, or they don't have a complete book, or because they're not in great condition. So there's always some caveat to why that's not the greatest book or the book for me to buy.
But wouldn't you? But see, for me as a collector, I'm different. I would rather have low grade than no grade. So in my mind, like, all right, well, if I can afford that 181 without the stamp in it, without the collector's stamp, I'm gonna do that. And then at some point I can trade that plus a little bit more cash up to get that more perfect, complete 181. So, you're always flipping and going up versus dropping the money off the most pristine book right off the rip.
And you have no problem buying the one without the Marvel value stamp, or with maybe missing the one guy I talked to last week or a couple weeks ago. He bought some big collection and it was missing like the centerfold or something like that. And he said it would probably come back as a CGC blue label, blah, blah, blah. Well, before I put $2,000 down, how do I know that? Right.
So there's a difference to me about a complete book missing a centerfold, like the centerfold pages, and not being a complete book versus a stamp. Because when you're a kid, you rip that stuff out, like the tattoo in the first Hobgoblin. Yeah, on 238. Like, to me, I have a copy of 238 without the tattoo. To me, I still have the book because the significance of the book is the characters and things like that. It's not a shitty little press-on tattoo. Right. Same thing with Hulk 181. Like, what do you want? Do you want the book to say I have a Hulk 181, or are you trying to resell it? Because if you just want it to own in your collection, then what does that stamp really mean?
But the problem is that you're paying big money. Like, I bought like an ASM 129 a couple months ago, and I paid more than what I think I paid a good number for it based on where the market was. But now we're seeing, something in the 4.0 range, and I bought a 5.5 for, a half, right? You're talking, from a 5.5 to a 4, but it still presents well. And we're not worried about a Marvel stamp. Like, it still presents well. Like, it's enough to put on your wall as a complete book. But if I'm buying a complete or non-complete, let's say, even go that far, a non-complete 181, missing the Marvel value stamp or missing some part of it, like, I have no idea how that's going to come back from CGC. I think it might came back as blue or red or purple label. I don't know that for sure. But what I'm saying is that you're putting a lot more money into that book at that grade, let alone a 4 ASM 129 at $1,000. Like, you're spending $2,000 on a Hulk 181 that's not graded, no Marvel value stamp, may come back restored, and you're thinking that's a lot of money to put on a book that may not be able to resell. Like, that's where I'm getting at. Like, if I could buy a Hulk 181 for like $1,000 at a 3.0 or like a 2.5, oh, no problem. But like, you're talking like there's a lot of caveats to get down to that point, right? Like, it's not that simple.
Remember what we were talking about last week after the show, how I was saying that I can see a time where the market corrects itself and Hulk 180 is then referred to as Wolverine's first appearance versus 180. What Ish just said, I'd rather get a 9.8 180 than fork out for a mid to low grade 181.
If I just got let me look here. I got my spec 90 and my spec 252 graded. And all of a sudden now the spec 90 and the spec 141 Team Up, Marvel Team Up 141, both say tied with 242 as the first appearance. Once CGC makes that change, then we worked out. Then you're better off. But are they going to make that change? No one has any idea if they're going to do that. You can speculate they might. I don't know if they will.
It's really, to me, comes down to are you buying the book to flip, or are you buying the book to keep? Because then at the end of the day, like, correct me if I'm wrong, I still think even without the stamp, it comes back a CGC blue label. It just says without the stamp. I don't think they consider that it doesn't come back blue label.
It comes back green or purple, which whatever one it comes back without the stamp.
Because the stamp doesn't affect the story. It doesn't affect the comic book. It's just it's a green label in there. Yeah, it's still, it's not, to me, that's stupid.
The thing of it is that, but you're going to buy 181 for like $2,500 in a decent grade, let's say of 3 or 4, 3 to 5 grade, 3 to 4.5 grade for $2,500 without the Marvel value stamp. I'm thinking it's a lot of dough to pay for something that is missing that stamp, right? If you can get like a full book for that kind of price, then fine.
Ish must be heated because he came back.
Ish.
Yes.
You got a Hulk 181 for me?
Am I here?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I got 2 of them.
Okay, they both got what's the value on these ones? What's the grade?
Oof, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not at the shop.
Okay, so like I'm saying, like the ASM,
they're not cheap.
They're not cheap, but why would you buy one without the Marvel value stamp for like $2,000 or $3,000 without that value stamp on it? You know what I'm saying? Like it's a book that isn't.
I guess you got to want it that bad,
right? But I don't want it that bad without that. I want it.
I get what you're saying. Without the stamp, it's still crazy expensive. Even with the stamp cut out, it's still
right.
Crazy
So
expensive.
like you're still paying big money for a book that doesn't have the stamp, and may have some issues if you send it into CGC. So what I want is a book that's graded that I can put on my wall and say I have Hulk 181. And it might be a 4 grade, it might be a 3 grade, whatever. I don't care what grade, as long as it fits within a budget I'm willing to spend. But if you spend too much on that book, right, it may not hold its value, even though it's qualified or it's missing the stamp. You're gonna, it's a weird book to have because you could spend a couple $1,000s just to put it on your wall, but it's going to be missing X, Y, and Z. It's not going to be complete, or you got to spend way more money, right?
But who is it that says, like, that's what I guess the stigma I want to try and get the industry away from, and I never will be. It's like, who cares what CGC says? That is a complete book. If it's not missing pages, it's a complete book. Who cares about that stamp? So if it's your collectible and it's for you, if it presents well and it's just
complete story,
that stamp,
yeah,
exactly, it's a complete story.
But you can't
if it
find
presents
one
well and it's got that stamp, then why? I guess it doesn't have the stamp. I don't see why it's a big deal. Like
the minute it has that,
your personal collection, you're not going to sell it. It's cooler to say,
hey,
I have one.
With that or not?
Yeah, I have one versus, oh well, it doesn't have the stamp, so it's a trash book.
Right,
it's
okay.
Garbage to me.
I have a Marvel Superheroes 20, which is a Doom cover. I bought it for $150. I don't know if it's a 1.0 or a 2.0 or a 3.0. I don't know exactly what grade it is, but it's raw, and I spent $100 on it. I'm fine with that. To spend $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 on a Hulk 181 in the same type of grade, I'm thinking that's a pretty big nut to crack to not know if I'm going to get my money back. $100, I'm okay if someone comes back and says this book is qualified, whatever. But for that Hulk 181, if it's not blue label, you're losing money in that regard. So it has to be complete, or it has to not have any restoration at all. And I'm okay with a shitty grade as long as it's a shitty blue grade, in my opinion. So that's what I'm getting at. Like, it's got to stay that way as a collector, in my opinion. Just like that Doom book for me. Like, I'm just glad to have that Doom book because it looks cool the way it is. But that, I would not pay that kind of money for a 181 that's missing the value stamp or isn't.
You can
complete.
swear. I'm not. Yeah, I said I would swear to Storm, and you're like, yeah.
All right. I don't want to spend that kind of money for a book that's
Christmas.
not going to have.
We don't have to swear.
And
You definitely swear. Fucking Christmas.
Fuck that shit. I don't want to spend that kind of money in that book.
Motherfuck, noise. There you go, Ish. I'll say fuck's all
Right.
I want.
I mean, ask yourself the question, $100 book, right? No big deal, right? For most of us, it's not a big deal, right? Again, I'm not going to say everybody's in the same boat, but if you're going to spend $100 on a book, fine. But you're not going to spend on a Hulk 181. You're talking $1,000, $2,000. And it may be missing a Marvel value stamp. It may be missing pages. It may be like a 1.0. It may be a shitty copy. And you're spending $1,000 on a book. For what? I mean, like I'm like saying to myself, like that's part of our conversation on that last podcast is like.
But if it's a slabbed book, who cares about the Marvel stamp? Then?
Right. If it's slabbed, right.
Slabbed.
But I looked at it.
You're never going to see that spot and go, oh, there's no stamp.
But how much is a 3.0? How much is a 3.0? How much is a 3.0?
Hulk 181 3.0?
Yeah, like $3,000, right?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No.
$2,500, right?
Well, let's go to
for
the
2.5
all-knowing eBay.
And I look. I have a Doom. I like that Doom book one. MSH 20. It's beat to hell, but it presents well. To me, if it presents well, I'm okay with that. I don't care what grade it is, as long as it presents well. But if you get some shitty 1.5, that's all creased to hell. Even if it has the Marvel value stamp, fine. And I'm okay with that. But that's $1,000 for a book. But you can't find those books for a Hulk 181. That's under $3,000 unless it's restored, and no one wants a restored or qualified book because it just hurts the value of it.
There's a 2.0 Hulk 181
buy a purple label,
super cheap, $2,400.
Crack it open, and you've got a.
But it's not. You can't get it super cheap. You can't get them super cheap unless you.
Purple label. Get it.
There's a 4.0 purple label on eBay right now for $2,500.
$2,500 naked eye.
So you're talking at $2,500.
That's a lot. Like that's still a lot.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's what I'm saying. Like you're not getting there might be upside there. I saw a 4.5 at like $2,500, $2,200. That's pretty good, right? A 4.5 for $2,200. And I lost out on that bid on that one. But that's where you're going to make your money if you're going to get it for $2,200. But if I'm going to buy a qualified to try to crack it for that, I don't think I'm going to make my money.
This guy's got a 4 or 5 for $3,900 on eBay. Crazy.
Like if I'm buying like I'm saying, I bought this 2.5 Silver Surfer 4 for like $500 under. That's as long as it presents well, like it doesn't have the crease between Silver Surfer and Thor. Granted, it's a 2.5. It's not a great grade. There's nothing great about it, but it looks good on my wall. And that's all I care about. It looks good on my wall for $500 or less. If I'm buying a Hulk 181, that book to me means what? The first appearance of Wolverine, which is one of my favorite characters, for $3,000. Am I buying a qualified one? No, but for $500 I would. But you can't find a qualified or restored one for $500, or else I buy it. And then crack it open, take off the tape, send it back in, see what happens. But you cannot find one at that grade for that $500. You're talking $2,000-$3,000.
This dude is selling a Hulk 181.98 and a giant size X-Men number 198 for $269,000.
Where's he at? I'm going to write the check out right now for it.
Oh man! And like Matt said, once Wolverine once Wolverine hits the MCU, this is just going to keep going up.
It is, but again, our recent podcast was about I could have bought that book in 1992 for $270. Why did I buy it for that? I don't know. I mean, like for a
You
kid,
didn't have a
Back then, that
crystal
was a
ball
lot
and
of
didn't
money for a
expect
comic
the-
book.
right?
Yeah.
For a kid who was 15, I didn't buy it.
There's
Yeah.
a raw no stamp
Yeah,
on
you're like
sale right
$270
now.
bucks for a comic book, not even knowing it's going to appreciate. That's crazy.
All right.
There's a
Right, but-
raw no stamp Hulk 181 on eBay right now for $690. There's a raw no stamp on there for $1,000. Like, honestly, your best bet, I think, going with trying to get a Hulk 181 is to go raw, because you're not, don't pay graded price on a raw book, first of all. So go raw and take your chances on getting it graded and see what it comes back at. Like, if you don't really care about the grade, you just want the complete book, then why not buy a raw copy, send it in yourself, and
See what happens.
see what happens.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, because the ones I saw the most recent show, I had a bunch of books I wanted to trade, right? And I thought these books were worth X, and those books came back at Y, which was 25% of value, and then they wanted big money for that Hulk 181, which was missing the Marvel value stamp. They were missing pages, whatever the hell it is. So I didn't buy them, and I got pissed off. So, I had ideas in mind, but sometimes these grails aren't going to be found in the wild. We're hoping for. That's what our conversation was for. Is you find them in the wild, you bring them back, and you make them.
If you want a 181, I got a Turkish variant. I'll sell you for $20.
20. I got it. I'll buy it right now. Again, I think you're almost better. I'm almost better to have the cover of it itself. Like, it's tough. Like, I want that book, but I'm saying, like, is that a good investment a long time? And that's what we talked about on our most recent podcast. Will that book appreciate in value? We don't know. Like, Rohan thinks it will. I'm not saying it won't, but I'm saying, like, to put that kind of money into a book that you can get pretty regularly, like, you can shoot a deer tomorrow in my neck of the woods, but you can't shoot an elk, right? An elk, a caribou, or something that you have to travel to find, right? So your bigger books, your Silver Surfer 4, you name the book, you're going to have to travel to get those. The Hulk 181 is pretty much a book that's available no matter where you go. Every dealer has it. There's some facet of it, whether it's missing a Marvel value stamp, or it's missing this or that, or it's not in the greatest grade. You can find the book if you want to get it, but it may not be perfect, right? You're not going to get an 8-point or 10-point deer. You're going to get some type of 4-point or 6-point. And that's where we come down to, is you want to have it in your collection or not. And I want a decent grade, but not like, you're not going to get a 9.8, right? We're not getting 10-point deers here in this one, but I don't know. It's a tough call. I would much rather buy it raw and get submitted in and do better that way. And if Ish has one for pretty cheap, I'll gladly buy it. But you seem to jack up your prices for some reason on friends and family.
Hey, now.
No, I'm just fucking. I totally appreciate it.
I just think it's funny that you think there's a friends and family at Ish's store.
There should be. I mean, again, there's more people that don't want to trade books and they want cash. And I am all about that. Ish at his store, why the hell do you want to trade me? Right? You want cash, right?
Absolutely. Cash is king.
Cash is king.
Cash is king. Cash
Ish,
gets
what's
you the
that
sweet
Iron Man
ideas.
1 going for these days?
You have to ask. You can't afford it, little man.
I was thinking, actually, we have our raw Iron Man 1 is a purple label 9.0. It's got a color
so I'll give
touch you will never, ever find.
Can I give you $100 for it?
There you go, JP.
It's 9.0. I think we have it at 1,000.
Turkish variant, Hulk 181 right there.
For it.
No, I'll gladly buy that one. What do you want for that one?
Actually, I think I have two of them.
Two of them.
Yeah. These aren't hard to. These are.
Well, I know, but it's again, you got it. That's the thing that stinks is you can put one on the wall that just covers what you want, like to have that memory or that thing of it. But like an Iron Man one, a Subby one, a Secret Wars one, they don't reprint that kind of shit. They've done so many reprints of probably those bigger books that you're just not going to find. Unless it's old.
Eric Williams says it comes down to, are you a collector or not? Otherwise, get a poster.
So Ish, what do you want for the Iron Man one?
JP, we're gonna talk again. We'll sidebar again about those books.
Okay.
We can make it.
Nah. You tell us live on air what you want for that book. Don't try to sugarcoat it. Don't try to push it off. You tell us, Ish.
I don't know
The
if you
inquiring
heard
minds
any of
want to
that.
know. The community wants to know, Ish. You poor internet having mass.
What was the question? I didn't hear. You guys just kind of.
You said you're going to do half off on that Iron Man book, right?
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I heard 50% off friends and family.
I can do trade. I mean, again, it's I think the market's changing a lot, and I experienced this back in the 90s, and that's what Rohan and I talked about. Is this the 90s? No. I think this is a correction from what happened in 2020, late 2020, early, throughout 2021. But again, does the comic book industry have staying power? I think it does. You're the guy you're the boots on the ground. Is this comic book, is this have staying power, or is this another 2000 or
Yeah, absolutely.
1990s change? I don't know. I think a lot has to do with these books that are coming out. The movie.
I hear that a lot. That this is a new. I was gonna say I hear that a lot. That this is the new 1997. It's actually a lot of comic book stores closing like this month. But I don't know if it's. I wouldn't compare it to 1997. This is a whole new beast now. It's a whole different beast. We got mega corporations, backing a lot of this stuff, which they didn't have back in the 90s.
Yeah, I think it's different than the 90s because people are out of it for different, various reasons. Like that was a comic book boom that had been, self-promoted, right? Whereas the movies did not push the books like they did back in the day, whereas now the movies push the books. And you got guys who are out of the industry because they couldn't sell as well as maybe online or maybe their local market because they had a better group locally, right? I don't care if you're in California, Arizona, or New York City, or Warren, Pennsylvania, wherever the hell you want to be at. If you have enough of the people that are going to keep your brand, then you will be fine, right? If you don't have enough people in your brand and you're going to die off, it doesn't matter where you're at, right? So the ones that may be dying, I think have more to do with their brand than the fact of the comic book industry. So moving forward, will the comic book industry continue? Yes, but will it continue like it did recently, or will it continue like it did in the 2000s, where you had a jump because of the Spider-Man movies or the Fantastic Four movies, which didn't do anything. Like, what are we going into now? I don't know. And that's where we're coming down from. Like, are you going to be dropping down?
Well, you said the magic word, brand.
And
that's a bigger brand right now than Marvel. Marvel,
but are you going to be,
they say that stars, we don't really have movie stars anymore. Brand has a star. I don't go see a so-and-so Brad Pitt movie or a Will Smith movie. I go see a Marvel movie or a Fast and Furious movie. It's now about the brand. The franchise has taken over as the main star. And Marvel Well, that's it doesn't get bigger than that as far as brands.
You're only in today's society, you're only as big as your brand.
But will that brand continue is what I'm saying. Like when you had those X-Men movies in the 2000s and Spider-Man movies, did they move comics? I was, part of what Rohan and I talk about is we did not collect back then. We had got out of it at that point. So did that propel the books forward? Did that help somebody who bought then till now? Will this help someone who bought in 2021 when prices were, pretty high going forward?
Well, I mean, that should tell you from what the price of 181 was in 90s to now, it's just constantly going up. Like Ish tells me every time I walk into a store, my butthole puckers because I see a key I want and the price on it. He's like, today's prices are tomorrow's steals. So
right.
He's like, it's just going to keep going up and up and up.
That 270 back in 1992 was like $207. $270. Now it's, and I don't even know if that was a high grade or mid grade. So you're looking at like $4,500, right?
My thing is like, how important is that? Like for $3,500, $3,600 for a Hulk 181, you could buy a decent used car for that. So
right.
Like, at the end of you're paying that kind of money for some paper to sit in a bag and you're on your wall, and like, because at the end of the day, no matter how you look at it, this stuff is only as valuable. Its value is only what someone's going to pay for it.
Right.
So if someone one day is like, well, I'm only going to pay you $100 for that book. Well, then that book's worth $100. It's
I mean,
to me, when I love comics, but at that day and age, I'd rather like trade up stuff I have versus drop cold hard cash on something, because like I said, $3,000, that's a decently used car. So physical car that can get you around and get you to A and B and actually serve a purpose, or you're going to drop $3,000 on a piece of paper that's going to sit on your shelf and look pretty if you're not going to sell it.
That's the rub about it, because like with like a lot of stuff that Rohan, he and I talk about, he wants to trade, or some of that stuff is like things I had as a kid. Mm-hmm. So Hulk 340, Mark McFarlane books, like you could try to find enough of that stuff, but do you want to give up that stuff for that Hulk 181? I don't know. Is it worth that trade up to have that bigger book sit? And then again, is it going to appreciate? Like you're saying, it's a freaking car. Mm-hmm. like that's a pretty big trade up to put cash that's going to sit on your right behind me here for what? But then again, a lot of these stuff are sitting on behind me. I've owned them for years. That Hulk 181, I intend to own for years, but that's a car, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's expensive paper, as Comic Tom says. Expensive paper.
It's expensive paper.
Tough call. I don't know. I'm having a tough call. I could drop dollars on it and say I got it, but
at the end of the day, like, is it going to make you feel any different? Is it going to make you feel any better about yourself? And
I look at it and I'll say, wow, look at that. Look at that. This is this.
Look at that 181 just sitting there.
Look at that son of a bitch. Mm-hmm. But my kid could use it on the car to drive to and from school.
Like your deer analogy. Yeah. But I mean, if you actually shot that deer, it's going to feed you for a good long time and provide other things. That comic book is an expensive piece of paper that you ain't driving anywhere. It's just sitting on your shelf.
Sitting there, and are you going to be able to trade it up? Like if I could, like Rohan, he's big on. He says I'm going to trade up these books I have, like 340 or 252 or X, Y, and Z. Like, yeah, you could get rid of those books, but like then you're getting rid of those childhood books to get one big book, and that's fine. Then you keep that one big book, but like you're giving up something to get something else, right? It isn't like it's hard to just you can buy it or you can just trade up to get it, right?
So you may tell you, I bet you I have a way that you could probably get Hulk 181 for a good deal. Tell people that you're doing a YouTube series on trading up, where you're going to start, because that's like a big thing now, where you see people trading up, starting with like a penny or a paper clip and trading it up to a house. Just be like, I'm going to start with this and just document as you trade up. And Like there's some kid that does it on Facebook already, and like he'll walk in with something, and people are like, "Oh, because you're trying to do this, I'll give this is a little bit more value, but I'll take the trade." So you might be able to pull a little something and work a deal if you're like, "Well, I'm trying to trade up to this, so I got this. Would you trade for this?" You know, it's just like the progression of it instead of just and it makes your journey, like it makes you appreciate it more then too, because then that's your journey. Like when you look at that book, you think of the journey you got there to get it, and that's a better story than being like, well, I walked in and dropped $3,000 on this book. What's up? You know, that's my kid's tuition for a month. What's up? You know, it's just like, all right, cool.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, yeah, I could just eBay, sure, no problem. I could have bought one like a week ago for like, oh my God, it was. I swear to God, this goddamn book was like at $3,000 and $2,600, and no one fucking bid on the goddamn thing. And then it came down to $2,200, and somebody fucking bid me out at $2,500, and I didn't get the book, but I could have easily bought it then. But that's not a very good story, is it?
Like Rohan just said, all my stuff I got in the last year, so no sentimental value for me on my stuff.
Right. So he's
got
okay
no connection.
He has no connection. Like some of my stuff is from years and years ago to trade up, and Rohan's like, I would rather just get rid of this type of book to get that book because that's more important. But like I was saying, it sat there. Like I could have got that book 2 months ago for a lower price, but it didn't happen. Right. That book dropped on eBay, and all of a sudden people saw, people were key to it. So I didn't get it. But I mean, like, again, I'm more along the lines of keeping what I have because I've been wanting the stuff I collected. Rohan's different. He's trading up, and that's fine. Everyone has their own collection, how they're doing things. But, at the end of the day, like, is it worth the $3,000?
Well, and I think that's what makes your guys' show so interesting is that your different ways of collecting, like how you are going about it so differently to get this book. The way you're collecting versus the way Rohan's doing it. And, it's just, sentimental value plays a lot into this kind of stuff. And
stuff. I love to have this book and put it on my shelf and say I got it, but like you said before, like you got $3,000 and you're gonna look at it.
What you got there, Ish? Dr. No?
That sounds like my wife.
I got one of my grails today.
Oh, nice.
I got one of my grails today. This is Showcase number 43, first appearance of James Bond in a comic book, and the first movie adaptation DC ever did. Unfortunately, It's in a PGX, so it's probably about a 7.0.
Crack it.
But it's cleaned and send it to EGS.
See what EGS.
Because I like EGS.
I
like them a lot. I like their labels. This is a book. I'm never, this is for my collection. I'm never selling it or anything, so I don't care about a CGC label. If I can get a cool like James Bond 007 label from EGS, I'm all in. And I know he's going to grade it right because the guy's a really solid grader.
Eric wants me to ask you about the Bond question.
I'm glad my internet actually works.
Yeah, Eric wants me to. While you have good internet, Eric wants me to ask you about the Bond question about. Yeah, Charlie Cox as Bond.
I don't know. No.
Riveting stuff-ish. Riveting.
I'd say thumbs down. Thumbs down on Charlie Cox says. There's another rumor, the dude from Game of Thrones who was also in the Eternals. Richard Madden.
Jon Snow? Oh.
The other guy.
Jon Snow.
Richard put very, very high on the list for James.
I hear Ish Devon is high on the
list. Along with Aaron.
Aaron Taylor Johnson should not be
on that fucking list.
No. Kit Harington.
It's my Showcase 43. Why you say that? Oh, he's droopy faced. You call him droopy faced.
Droopy faced. He always looks like everything he does, he's about to fall asleep. But
not Kit Harington, Richard Madden.
Ishtavan should
I'm
be.
just correcting Eric Williamson. He needs to be corrected once in a while.
Ishtavan
Eric
should be
Williamson's out of
007,
control.
009,
I should. 00777.
69. 0077769. That's Ish right there. All right. Well, I think that's.
This even has a badass back. Look at that.
God damn it, Ish.
Look at this.
That is
Comic
cool.
books, Matt. I'm always going to interrupt you with comic book shit.
I know. It's not your bad internet, it's your comic book shit. Eric says, Ish, we already decided the next Bond is Peter Dinklage.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Petey Dinky. All right. Well, I think it's a good end for us tonight on this glorious Festivus. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for everyone in the chat. Eric Williamson, Cardi West, Leftover Zaggy, my wife Erin, everyone who joined us tonight. Ish in his crummy internet. I thank everyone. Rohan, thank you everyone for being here. Make sure
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers. Make sure to check out the new episode of Absolute Game of Nerds this Monday, going live as they start that search for 181. Get a little bit more, go check out the first issue to get first episode to get a little bit more backstory on Rohan and JP and their collecting habits and what them got back into the game. And most of all, I hope you guys have a great holiday, a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah for everyone celebrating Hanukkah. I just hope you guys have a just genuinely great holiday. We will see you guys back here next week as we hopefully go over our best of the year lists and kind of head into 2023 the best way we can, right? So from all of us to all of you, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, and we will see you guys next time.
Peace.
All you freaks and geeks.
My feats of strength was carrying the show through Ish's terrible internet.
Let's listen to Absolute Geek.
Absolute Geek.
We'll go ahead and spread our cheeks.
Spread the cheese.
And drink
And
some
we're for
Cosby wine.
We'll
Come
drink
on,
some
you
Cosby wine. It makes me feel real fine. See you next time.